Chapter 576. In Jingfeng City, the Yin-Yang formation was completed. The Yin-Yang fish swam around knowing destiny. Green and gold light lit up the night sky. In Zhongzhou, many human supremes looked at Jingfeng City in shock. In the camps of the two armies, Xiao Bieli walked out of the commander's tent. He looked at the sky in the north and squinted his eyes. In Tianjing City, Chao Tianxi, who was still in seclusion, felt a strong pressure from afar. He opened his eyes. In an instant, the space shook. A star venerable appeared in the sky and dashed towards the north. In Jingfeng City, beside Ning Chen, Qing Ning looked at the yin-yang formation in the sky with a serious expression. The heavenly mansion star venerable might be here soon, Qing Ning reminded him. Yes. Ning Chen nodded. Such a big movement couldn't be hidden from the heavenly mansion star venerable. Chao Tianxi wouldn't give him a chance to complete the formation. This battle was unavoidable. Be careful. Qing Ning didn't say anything else. She just instructed him, and then took Yin Er's hand and left. Military advisor. A purple light flashed and Zhao Liusu appeared. Prepare for battle. Ning Chen said calmly. Zhao Liusu nodded. The purple light dissipated and she left temporarily. The yin-yang formation had just been completed. The heavenly mansion star venerable was about to arrive. A tense atmosphere spread in the city. Except for a few severely injured human supremes, everyone else appeared in the Hall of Venerables to prepare for the upcoming battle. Everyone, our mission is to stand guard outside. If the formation is broken, we'll replace military advisor and take over the battle immediately, Zhao Liusu looked at the human supremes and said seriously. Yes. The human supremes accepted the order and replied respectfully. In Wenxian Palace, Qing Ning sent Yin Er back. She walked to the front of the palace and looked into the distance. She couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. Ning Chen's current condition wasn't suitable for battle, especially when he had to hide the fact that he had a demonic body. In Zhongzhou, a white figure dashed past. It was so fast that it was shocking. It was so close yet so far. It was heading north at extreme speed. He's here. In the yin-yang formation in Jingfeng City, Ning Chen looked to the south. He waved his hand and the sunly fire appeared. White light rose and sword intent appeared again. At the same time, Chao Tianxi descended from the sky. The light was dazzling. Jiming Marquis, it really is you, said Chao Tianxi coldly. Nice to meet you, Ning Chen replied. Your formation isn't bad, so I can't let you live. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a flash of light. Chao Tianxi entered the formation and struck out with his palm. With the imminent danger, Ning Chen took half a step forward. The great formation shone brilliantly. The two formations rotated and quickly devoured the former's palm power. The power of yin-yang. Chao Tianxi's eyes flashed with a strange light. He raised his hand and the void swirled. A huge black vortex appeared and pressed down on the yin and yang formation. At the center of the formation, Ning Chen flipped his palm and guided the power of the formation to block the descending black vortex. At this moment, an earth-shattering collision sound rang out, and the chaotic airflow collapsed and spread out in all directions. Inside the Taoist and Buddhist formations, Bai Lingling and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture were also affected by the aftershocks. They both took half a step back, and the corners of their mouths were instantly dyed red. Seeing this, Chao Tianxi channeled his palm essence again, gathering the wind and clouds in all directions, increasing the power of his attack by 3 times. Ning Chen mobilized the power of the Great Formation, and the two formations rotated to block the former's palm power. This was an earth-shattering battle. The yin and yang formation was opened, and the two venerables held each other. Ning Chen used the power of yin and yang to fight the celestial treader. The shocking aftermath filled every corner of the great formation, frightening the gods and Buddhas. Jiming Marquis, you've used power beyond your limits. How long do you think you can hold on? Chao Tianxi looked at the three in the formation and said coldly. Star Venerable, you're so perceptive. I can't hold on for long, but how long can a Star Venerable keep attacking like this? At this moment, if Jiming Marquis was still a Star Venerable in his prime, I might have surrendered without a fight, Ning Chen said with a smile. It's useless to argue. Jiming Marquis, die. Chao Tianxi flipped his hands, and his amazing cultivation rose to the extreme. Dark clouds quickly gathered in the sky, and thunder shook the sky, covering the cold moon in the sky. Seeing that the opponent's aura was getting stronger and stronger, Ning Chen's expression became serious. He turned his feet, gathered the power of yin and yang, and rushed out quickly. In an instant, his red robe was like an illusion, and his white fan turned into a sword. As he opened and closed it, sword light shot out. Oh! You don't want to defend anymore. Chao Tianxi turned his palm to block the sword, and a vast palm power swept out, sweeping toward the former. Ning Chen waved his fan to block the attack, and retreated 3 steps. Then he stepped forward again. With a glance, the sword moved thousands of times. In a close combat, the sword light was deadly, and each sword was faster than the previous one. Can your sword defend the central plains? Chao Tianxi snorted, and turned his palm to block the sword light. Then he gathered his yuan and qi, and hit again. With a boom, the white fan blocked the attack, and it turned red. In an instant, the blood light turned into a sword, and broke through the sky. The sword at the peak was infinitely close to becoming one. With the support of the power of yin and yang, its power doubled. Chao Tianxi raised his hand, and the void rolled, and the sword light was drowned. Then he turned his slender hand, and his palm power was overwhelming. The two extremes collided again, and the dust and sand billowed. The two venerables in the formation could not bear the power of the counterattack, and they both vomited blood. Affected by the power of the two venerables, the blue and gold taiji diagrams in the sky became unstable and shook violently. Seniors, please hang in there. In the formation, Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, glanced at the two, and said lightly. The Lord of Taibai Mansion and Bai Lingling nodded, and they suppressed their internal injuries with a shout, and stabilized the formation again. Chao Tianxi squinted his eyes slightly, and said, Marquis Jiming, it seems that the counterattack they suffered was much more than yours. Ha! Ning Chen chuckled, and said, Star Venerable, I'm surprised that you can provoke us with your words. I'm just telling the truth, Chao Tianxi said calmly. The cultivation of the knowing destiny realm is far less than that of the two seniors. If we bear most of the power, I'm afraid we can't even bear one move of the Star Venerable. Once the formation is broken, we will be like fish on the chopping board, at the mercy of the Star Venerable, Ning Chen said with a smile. Chao Tianxi sneered, and said, Really? I've heard that the Marquis Jiming of the Great Xia's style has always been that a general success is built on thousands of dead bodies. In order to achieve his goal, he will never hesitate to sacrifice anyone. These two people are also the pawns that you will sacrifice, right? Well, Star Venerable, it's beneath your dignity to slander others. Don't you know that I've always taken the lead and worked hard? If what you said is true, how can the people standing in front of you be in the knowing destiny realm? Ning Chen retorted. The Marquis Jiming's tongue is as sharp as a sword, Chao Tianxi said coldly. The knowing destiny realm deserves this compliment, Ning Chen replied. Ha, you too, remember what you look like as military counselors. When you go to hell, there will be someone to take your life. As soon as he finished speaking, Chao Tianxi spread his palms in all directions, and torrents kept gathering. The shocking power shook the world, and the power beyond the limit of human beings reappeared in the world. Seniors, be careful. If you can't resist this move, we will really go to hell together. As he spoke, Ning Chen stepped forward and the white fan in his hand shone brightly. Beams of sword light shot up into the sky. They were magnificent and endless. In the dark night, where the moon was covered by dark clouds, they were so dazzling that they could be seen clearly. Sword form, heavens tear. The heavens tear appeared, and the yin and yang formation rotated. The sword light flowed with the power of yin and yang, and the power of yin and yang rose sharply. In the yin and yang formations, the lord of the Taibai mansion and Bai Lingling also focused their minds and strengthened the power of the formations with the power of the Buddha's true essence. The next moment, the blue and gold Tai Chi patterns shone brightly in the sky. Countless beams of sword light fell from the sky, cutting through the dark night with the power to destroy the world. The world shook. Clear snow in all heavens, follow the waves in sorrow. In the formation, Chao Tianxi used the power of the ultimate heaven, and cold air spread out endlessly. The shocking move went against the current. The battle at the pinnacle caused the heavens and earth to rumble. Beneath the four of them, the ground caved in, sinking several feet. Outside the formation, Zhao Liusu, Venerable Li Shan and the others looked serious. They were watching the battle attentively, ready to take over at any time. They knew clearly that they couldn't lose this battle. Otherwise, the central state would never be able to turn the situation around. In the battle, after the two forces collided, the two figures retreated more than 10 steps. Blood kept flowing out of the corners of their mouths. They were seriously injured. Clang! The Taoist sword stabbed into the ground and stopped the retreat. The lord of the Taibai mansion shouted in a deep voice. His true essence surged to suppress his injuries. On the other side, Bai Lingling spat out a mouthful of blood. Her clear sky-colored glaze technique was unstable. She couldn't enter the supreme level. The balance of yin and yang was broken. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation shook violently and showed signs of collapse. In the center of the formation, Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth. He looked at the sky and sighed. Star Venerable, it seems that you have won. Is it too late to surrender now? I can only be at ease if you die. Chao Tianxi suppressed the surging blood qi in his body. His figure flashed, and his palm attack was deadly. Ning Chen stepped forward, and the water light flickered. He dodged in advance. Humph, do you think you can escape? Chao Tianxi changed the direction of his palm and attacked again. In terms of speed, the knowing destiny state is not afraid of anyone. Ning Chen operated the little phoenix spirit in his body and dodged again in an instant. With a loud bang, the palm attack passed by. Rows of palaces collapsed and turned into ashes. Chao Tianxi's eyes turned cold. He had almost forgotten that this person had phoenix spirit. Compared to swordsmanship, speed was his strength. Sword move, blood flame. Seeing that the Tai Chi formation in the sky was about to collapse, Ning Chen didn't hesitate anymore. He stepped into the sky and gathered the last of his yin and yang forces to perform the ultimate sword move again. The phoenix fire fell from the sky like waves. Wherever it passed, the sword will cut out gullies. Its amazing power shook the sky and the earth. Chao Tianxi squinted his eyes and turned his palm to resist the sword will again. The vigorous palm attack met the sword will head-on. With a loud explosion, the palm attack broke through the sword will and roared out. The yin and yang were out of balance, and the yin-yang formation couldn't resist the shocking palm attack. In the Taoist formation, Bai Lingling, who was exhausted, was the first to bear the brunt. She was in danger. Seeing this, Ning Chen dashed out. He grabbed Bai Lingling and moved hundreds of feet away quickly. With a loud bang, the palm attack broke the formation and destroyed the 100,000 divine restrictions in an instant. In the most critical situation, the yin-yang formation collapsed. Zhao Liusu and the others didn't dare to delay and immediately rushed to the battlefield. Amitba. At this moment, the sound of Sanskrit rang out. Golden lotuses bloomed in the sky, and rays of light gathered. A goddess of mercy walked out of thin air. She turned her delicate hand slightly and a majestic Buddhist power pressed down from all directions, immediately stabilizing the collapsed formation. West Jade Lord. Ning Chen's eyes flashed brightly. The person who was supposed to be here was finally here. Chapter 577. The West Jade Master appeared. The Goddess of Mercy's appearance was otherworldly and extraordinary. Her lotus fingers gently twirled, and golden light scattered outwards, locking down the scattered great formation. The Bodhi samurai was wearing a flawless white robe. His holy light illuminated the night. The West Jade Master, one of the three most mysterious Buddhists, had come to competitive Peak City in person. Master. Bai Lingling steadied herself as a respectful look flashed across her exhausted face. You're badly injured. You can't fight anymore. Come out of the formation and heal yourself. The West Jade Master said softly. Then she turned her palm over. A gentle force wrapped around Bai Lingling and sent her out of the formation. West Jade Master, greetings. Ning Chen smiled and cupped his fists. You're too polite. Let's work together to fight the enemy first, the West Jade Master said calmly. Ning Chen nodded calmly. Buddhist power poured into the Yin and Yang formation, and the Yin and Yang forces were balanced again. A blue and gold Taiji diagram appeared in the sky again. It kept spinning, and its power seemed to be stronger than before. Star Venerable, the previous battle doesn't count. From now on, we'll officially start. Ning Chen waved his hand to disperse the blood on his fan. If I can defeat you once, I can do it again. Marquis Jiming, I'll definitely take your life today. Then Chao Tianxi raised his right hand. A boundless pressure spread out, and the space laws appeared again. Void destruction. He pointed his finger at the sky, and the space within 1,000 feet collapsed. The void spread out and swallowed everything in its way. His move was extraordinary. Ning Chen's paragon flame shone brightly. The phoenix fire refined the yin and yang, and a sea of fire rose to fight against the space laws. The phoenix true fire was an extraordinary flame. It kept rising in the formation, and it was indestructible. The two forces collided fiercely, and they intertwined with dazzling light. Suddenly, the whole competitive Peak City became as bright as day. Sword move, space breaking. After a moment of stalemate, Ning Chen turned his white fan. Phoenix essence flowed around his body. Flames rose, and the phoenix body move appeared again. His sword intent roared, and it turned into 100-foot-long gust of wind. Chao Tianxi turned his palm to block it. His protective vital energy blocked the sword intent, and there were no flaws. Sword move, bloody path. The sword style changed, and the demonic technique appeared. In an instant, the red robe shot out, and the sword condensed into yin and yang. The concentrated sword thrust straight towards the heart meridian. Clang! His palm energy blocked the sword, and the void laws swirled, making it difficult for the sword light to advance. Drink! Shao Qin shouted, and his red clothes spun around quickly. The scarlet flame on his white fan flourished. Yin and Yang converged, inching closer to Shao Qin. How dare you! Facing imminent danger, Chao Tianxi's eyes flashed with a white light. An unparalleled amount of qi surged out and sent the person in front of him flying. Ta-ta! Hong Yi landed on the ground and took several steps back. Blood flowed from his right arm, dyeing the white fan red once more. Military advisor, why don't you use your sword? Inside the Dao formation, the West Jade Master asked as she flipped her palm and stabilized the formation, which was shaking violently due to the impact of the battle between the two. It's broken, Ning Chen replied casually. When the West Jade Lord heard this, she waved her hand. Holy light shone, and a golden Buddhist weapon flew forward. On the other side, the chief of Taibai Prefecture also waved his hand to send out the Taoist sword in his hand to help the knowing destiny state. When the two swords arrived, Ning Chen calmed himself down and grasped them with both hands. The moment the swords entered his hands, his sword will broke through the limit and reached its peak. The Buddhist weapon and Tao sword shone with golden and green light. In the sky, the formation resonated with each other, and the power of yin and yang fell and entered the swords. Space breaking. The sword technique appeared again, and the two swords danced. The same technique, but with a completely different power, broke through the air. Chao Tianxi's eyes narrowed, and he circulated his palm energy. His genuine qi was vast, and he blocked the attack head-on. The two extremes collided, and heaven and earth tilted. The heavenly mansion star Venerate retreated half a step. This was the first time he had retreated since the start of the battle. Sword technique, bloody path. Bloody light blossomed, and Hong Yi arrived in an instant. One sword swept out, followed by another. Sword after sword, chasing after soul to take life. Ah! One sword stopped, while the other assisted. Chao Tianxi's genuine qi froze for a moment, and the Buddhist weapon penetrated an inch. Blood dyed his white dress red. Overflowing snow destroys the world. Chao Tianxi's palm condensed into a snow wave, and his palm imprinted on Chao Tianxi's chest. It was so powerful that even gods and ghosts would be frightened. At the moment of crisis, the formation changed rapidly. Ning Chen gathered yin and yang in front of him to protect his heart. There was a violent tremor, and blood splattered. Hong Yi flew dozens of feet away, and she vomited blood when she landed. In the yin and yang formations, the West Jade Master and the Taibai Manor Lord both suffered from the backlash and were injured. Ah! The chief of Taibai Prefecture staggered a few steps and vomited blood from his mouth. Ning Chen steadied himself and looked back at the Taibai Manor Lord, who was in the Buddhist formation. Senior Taibai, can you still hold on? Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked. Don't worry about me, I can still hold on. The Lord of Taibai Prefecture shouted softly. The real qi around his body surged, and he kept suppressing the injuries that were surging violently. That's good. Ning Chen looked back at the Tianfu star Venerate in front of him and said calmly, again. Outside the battle, Zhao Yosu and the others, who had been watching the battle for a long time, looked more and more serious. The Tianfu star Venerate's strength was shocking. He had indeed surpassed the limits of the mortal world. The military counselor's strength was no weaker than a prime. Even with the yin and yang formation supported by two top-notch venerates, it was still difficult for him to gain the upper hand. However, at this moment, only the military counselor could fight with the Tianfu star venerate until now. Just as the venerates were watching the battle, the two sides started fighting again. The sword and the palm collided. After being injured, the Tianfu star venerate's killing intent was even stronger than before. As he moved, his power was even more shocking. Ning Chen refined yin and yang with his swords and faced the enemy head-on. His arms were stained with blood, but he did not retreat. His attacks were also fiercer. In the yin and yang formation, the two venerates suffered most of the aftermath. Their injuries were accumulating and getting heavier. In comparison, the knowing destiny state venerate who was facing the enemy head-on was protected by the formation and was the least injured. With a loud explosion, the two separated again. Ning Chen steadied himself and was about to charge forward when suddenly, the Buddha formation changed. The severely injured Taibai domain chief was hit by the aftermath. He staggered and could not support himself anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight to the ground. The yin and yang were out of balance, and the formation shook. Ning Chen's expression changed. He no longer hesitated and stepped into the air. The two swords circled and absorbed all the power of the formation to form the last attack. Nirvana. In an instant, the sword intent soared into the sky and blood stained the swords. Although they came from the same source, their cultivation methods were different. The most powerful nirvana was beyond the range of the demonic body. If he used it forcefully, he would suffer the backlash. In the sky full of blood, the magnificent sword light crisscrossed. The most powerful sword finally appeared in the world. Below the formation, Chao Tianqi saw that the incoming attack was different from before. His expression was solemn. He used the power of wind and snow with his left hand and changed the space with his right hand. The two moves flowed together and met the incoming attack. With a loud explosion, heaven and earth were in chaos. The aftermath hit each other and both sides were stained with blood. Ah! With a muffled groan, Chao Tianqi staggered. The sword intent entered his body and affected the injury he suffered when he hit the Netherworld King's enchantment. In an instant, it exploded. On the other side, the yin and yang formation was broken. The two venerates were stained with blood. The West Jade Master suppressed her injury and stepped out. The holy light around her illuminated the world. She used the Buddha technique for the first time. 3 realms of salvation, Bodhisattva repentance of demons. The Buddha technique of salvation was used. Guanyin moved to kill, and all demons trembled. Chao Tianqi's eyes changed. He turned his palm and condensed his vitality to block the attack. But with an earth-shattering explosion, both of them stepped back and their mouths were stained with blood. Outside the battle, seeing that the formation was broken, Zhao Liusu and the others hurried forward. More than 10 supreme venerates joined the battle and surrounded Chao Tianqi. Star Venerable, what do you think? I've already said that you might not be able to defeat me. In the current situation, no one can gain an advantage if we continue to fight. It's up to you whether you want to destroy us together or take a step back. Ning Chen stepped forward and said calmly. Chao Tianqi's eyes were cold. What a Marquis Jiming! What a yin-yang formation! It wasn't an accident that the Netherworld King's path to destruction was blocked. Marquis Jiming, you've won this round. I hope you won't leave Jingfeng City for the rest of your life. Otherwise, I'll take your life. As he spoke, the void shook. Chao Tianqi's body gradually faded away. In an instant, he disappeared. Puff! As soon as Chao Tianqi left, Ning Chen staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood, which dyed the ground in front of him red. Zhao Liusu, who was the closest to Ning Chen, was shocked. She immediately went forward to support him and called out, "Military counselor. I'm fine. Let's go and see how Senior Tai Bai is doing," Ning Chen said weakly as he spat out another mouthful of blood. I'll take care of it. Military counselor's injuries aren't light. I'll send someone to take him back first, Zhao Liusu said seriously. Let me do it. At this moment, Qing Ning appeared. She bowed to the West Jade Master and said, Master, Ning Chen's injuries are serious. I'll take him to heal first. Go ahead, the West Jade Master nodded and said. Qing Ning helped Ning Chen and didn't stay. Her figure flashed and she flew toward Wenxian Palace. 15 minutes later, in Wenxian Palace, Ning Chen was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. Yin, who had been woken up by the battle, looked at him with her big eyes. Her face was full of dissatisfaction. Stop pretending. Sister Qing Ning said that your injuries aren't that serious, Yin said as she pulled Ning Chen's arm and pulled it down. Ning Chen got up helplessly and said, Okay, even if they aren't serious, I'm still injured. Can't you let me rest for a while? Why are you pretending to be injured? Yin climbed onto the bed and sat down next to him. She kicked her legs around as she asked. To make the people outside feel better, think about it. Of the 4 people who entered the formation, Bai Lingling is seriously injured, and the Tai Bai Palace Lord is half dead. Even the West Jade Master must be seriously injured. Wouldn't it be inappropriate for me to act like I'm fine at this time? Ning Chen said softly. Yin raised her head and thought about it. It seemed to be true. But the other 3 people are all so miserable. Why are you the only one who's fine? Yin's eyes flashed with confusion. I'm just lucky. Ning Chen rubbed his nose and gave a vague answer. You're so cunning. Yin wasn't an idiot. She could more or less guess what he was thinking. Hey, you can't say that. Ning Chen patted her head and said, think about it. I was the one who set up the formation. I was also the one who fought. I even had to deal with the small talk inside the formation. I worked so hard, and I'm so important. It's not too much to let them suffer a bit more injuries, right? It's not too much. Yin cooperated and nodded vigorously. Chapter 578. In competitive Peak City, Ning Chen was bedridden and hadn't left Wen Xian Palace for a few days. During this period, many human supremes came to visit. Even Zhao Yosu, who was the Alliance Venerable, came twice to ask about his condition. The news of the Alliance's military advisor being heavily injured quickly spread to Eternal Heaven City and the Heavenly Province Barracks. However, no matter if it was Xiao Libi or Chao Tianxi, both of them remained silent after hearing the news. They had already experienced Jiming Marquis' scheming. No one could guarantee that it was not a trap to lure the enemy. The painful lesson of Wanqing Pass was still fresh in their minds. Even the Heavenly Prefecture couldn't take it a second time. Minister of Heaven, with the cultivation of a star venerable, even though Jiming Marquis managed to protect competitive Peak City, he must have paid a hefty price. It's very likely that he was seriously injured. This is an opportunity that we can't miss, Celestial Venerable Ling said to the blue-clothed man in front of her. Xiao Bieli didn't speak. After a long time, he said calmly, if I were Jiming Marquis, the more injured I was, the more I would pretend to be fine in front of others. Jiming Marquis wouldn't make such an obvious mistake as long as he's still alive. In Wenxian Palace, Qing Ning sent off the 2 visiting supremes again. She then pinched Yin's little face, which was full of acting skills. This little girl was learning more and more from Ning Chen. Yin, play by yourself. I'll go back first, Qing Ning said softly. Ah, so fast, Yin, said reluctantly. Qing Ning looked over and stared at Ning Chen, who was lying on the bed like a master. She said, he's fine, but your sister Lingling's injuries aren't light. I have to go back and take care of her. Oh. Yin wrinkled her nose at someone and said, it's all his fault. He's too bad. Qing Ning laughed softly and said, all right, I'll go back. Be careful, don't give yourself away. Okay, Yin nodded and said. Come visit me more often when you're free. Otherwise, they'll be suspicious, Ning Chen said from the bed. Got it. Qing Ning replied in annoyance and walked out of the hall. Ning Chen, I'm so bored, Yin ran to the bed and said. I'm even more bored, Ning Chen replied. Let's sneak out to play, Yin suggested. No, I want to rest. Ning Chen turned around, his back facing the little girl as he replied. Ning Chen, I'm ordering you to go out and play with me right now. Yin said angrily as she forcefully pulled the former back. Why should I listen to your orders? Ning Chen asked in astonishment. Did you forget that you still owe me 2 wishes? I need them now, Yin said confidently. Ning Chen's eyelids twitched. He had forgotten about this. Quick, let's sneak out. No one will know, Yin urged. You might be stupid, but those people from the Hall of Paragons aren't stupid. They'll definitely know once we leave, Ning Chen replied. Then what should we do? Yin said dejectedly. Do you really want to leave? Ning Chen asked. Yes. Yin nodded vigorously and replied. Ning Chen thought for a moment and said a few words to the little girl. Soon after, he smiled and said, go on. Don't forget to say hello to your big sister Qin Ning. All right. Her smiled, turned around, and ran out. After the little girl left, Ning Chen sat up and looked out of the window. A faint light flashed in his eyes. The news of his serious injuries must have spread. Wise people had the common problem of being cautious and suspicious. That celestial phenomenon sovereign was no exception. Coupled with the lesson from Wanqingguan, he would definitely be more cautious this time. His injuries were indeed not serious, but the Taibai Prefecture Lord's injuries were not light. If the Taibai Prefecture Lord attacked again, Jingfeng City would really be in danger. No one could replace the Taibai Prefecture Lord's position. At least, he had not found such a person yet. In the current situation, it seemed that no one could do anything to the other, but in reality, the inner world was still in an absolute passive position. Although he could block the Taibai Prefecture Star Venerate in Jingfeng City, Chao Tianxi was still invincible outside of Jingfeng City. The only fortunate thing was that after a series of battles, Chao Tianxi's injuries had worsened. In the short term, unless it was necessary, he would not attack again. In this short period of time, he had to find a way to deal with Chao Tianxi. Otherwise, the chances of the alliance of sects winning this war were really slim. Ning Chen, I'm back. Just then, Her's voice came from outside the room. There was also the squeaking of the wheelchair. Ning Chen got up and walked to the front of the wheelchair. Such a familiar scene made him sigh inwardly. He could not remember how many times he had sat in this thing. Let's go. As long as we don't leave the city, we can go anywhere. Ning Chen said softly. Now, the Taibai Prefecture Star Venerate wanted to kill him the most. Leaving the city was no different from seeking death. Nodded and walked to the back of the wheelchair, pushing it outside. In the Central Plains battlefield, the two armies clashed. The defeat of the alliance of sects continued. Broken weapons and broken swords were everywhere. The cruelty of war had never changed. Just then, two young figures walked over from afar. One was black and the other snow-white. The two young swordsmen had completely different auras, but they were both shockingly strong. When the swords met, there was no hostility. They looked at each other and nodded. This was the calmest greeting between former comrades. What a coincidence! What a coincidence! Looking for the Marquis? Yes. It's really surprising that you would care about these things. Aren't you here too? I don't care about the Central Plains, but Ji Ming seems to have been injured again. As a friend, I have to help him get back at him. As a friend, let me remind you to be careful. Be careful of what? Be careful of being killed by Ji Ming Marquis. Jian you've become humorous. I'm just speaking the truth. It's not easy being friends with Ji Ming Marquis. Of course, it's better than being a senior. At least we're still alive. There aren't many people in this world who would dare to call Ji Ming Marquis a senior. Mu Qiansheng, speaking ill of others behind their backs isn't the behavior of a gentleman. The army blocked their path, but the two didn't stop. Their swords didn't move, but their sword lights were like rain. The people around them were sent flying and couldn't get close. Behind the Taibai Prefecture army, Xiao Bieli saw the two from afar. His expression froze. What a strong sword will. Celestial Venerable Ling, stop these two, Xiao Bieli said. Yes. Celestial Venerable Ling received the order, and her figure flashed as she swept forward. Oh. Someone's coming. In the Taibai Prefecture army, Mu Qiansheng turned around with a strange look in his eyes. Fight or run? Jian asked calmly. Run. Mu Qiansheng didn't even think about it. One sword, 10,000 calamities. Jian heard him and waved his hand. Amidst the ancient brilliance, the broken sword was unsheathed. With a slash, a flat path opened up 3,000 feet in front of them. The two took a step and sped away. Sword Chi. At this moment, 100 miles away, a young man in a purple and red robe stopped. He looked forward with a strange look in his eyes. In the next moment, a stream of light flashed and moved forward. 100 miles away, two swords were flying north. Behind them, Celestial Venerable Ling's figure was chasing after them. The three figures, two in front and one behind, were getting closer and closer. The speed of a peak supreme being was still slightly faster. Let's fight. Seeing the people behind them getting closer and closer, Mu Qianshang changed his mind and spoke again. Jian Er didn't express his opinion. He stopped and turned around, ready to attack. It's not easy, be careful, Mu Qianshang reminded. As long as it's easier than King Ming, Jian Er said calmly. Heh. Mu Qianshang laughed softly and said, if it happens again, I'll surrender on the spot. Thinking about the situation back then, I'm still scared. Useless, Jian Er said indifferently. Mu Qianshang was about to retort when his expression suddenly froze. Here it comes. The battle strategy is simple. If you can win, then fight. If you can't, then run. Jian Er nodded and took half a step forward. His sword will rose continuously, and endless sword pressure spread in all directions. An instant later, the illusion shook and purple light gathered. An incomparably strong aura appeared. Without any nonsense, a vast palm smacked towards the two of them. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er's figures flashed and avoided the palm force. Then, one attacked and one defended, quickly meeting the attack. Mountain and water painting opened, and the sword realm sealed the supreme being. At the same time, Jian Er swung his sword. Within 3,000 feet, absolute speed, absolute sword intent, and no distance, arrived in an instant. With a clang, the palm and sword clashed. The sword cultivator took 3 steps back, and the moment he turned his body, a black and white sword chi flashed past him. Celestial Venerable Ling's expression froze. Her raised hand landed and dispersed the sword chi. In an instant, the broken sword shuddered again. It was fast and accurate. There was no gap in their tacit cooperation. The two swords crossed, attacking and defending alternately. One sword advanced while the other retreated. The same sword was at the pinnacle, but a different sword was at the highest level. It reappeared the glory of the battle of blasphemy. Celestial Venerable Ling flipped her palm to block the two swords. Her heart trembled even more. This was the first time she realized that swords could change like this. When the battle reached its climax, the sound of a sword rang outside the sword realm. In the next instant, a blue sword light flashed past, and a mournful sword hum invaded people's hearts. Purple and red clothes, a young face, instantly entered the battle. He grasped his sword and moved it, sealing the supreme being. The sword at the pinnacle shone in an instant. There was no need for words, and the sword moved mountains and rivers. The three swords worked together to fight Ling Tian. Endless sword will filled the sky with sword light. Friend, your name, Mu Qianshang swung his sword to guide the ink painting to block Ling Tian's palm. Yi Xuanmiao, 4th Crown Prince Mizar said calmly as the green moth danced. After this battle, I'll treat you to a drink. As he spoke, Mu Qianshang gathered the power of the mountains and rivers from all directions. Red light appeared in the sword realm. In the black and white world, the blood light rushed into the sky. That was it. Half a day's remnant red reflects the river moon. The extreme move appeared, and the mountains and earth cracked. The sword realm changed, causing the heaven and earth outside to change drastically. Violent waves of sand swept 300 yards. Sword form, formless sword. Sword 2 stepped into the air at the same time and coordinated with his sword. The formless sword gathered again and again, and in an instant, it broke through the air. Cry of the green moth. Two swords appeared at the pinnacle. Yi Xuanmiao's eyes flashed with a dazzling brilliance. With a wave of his hand, the green moth danced in the opposite direction and flew forward. In the Golden Era, the three pinnacle prodigies of the sword gathered. Sword martial spring and autumn shocked the world. The three swords approached her. Ever since she left the immortal execution forbidden ground, Celestial Venerable Ling felt a life-threatening pressure. Her expression froze, and all her energy gathered in her palms to block the three sword lights. Boom! With a violent tremor, heaven and earth sank, and the four of them each took a few steps back. Suddenly, an arrow light broke through the battle without any warning. In an instant, it pierced through her body. Chapter 579. In the Mountain River Sword Realm, the three prides fought Ling Tian, and their ultimate moves clashed. Sword sparks and blood splattered everywhere. The arrow that appeared in the aftermath was so sudden that it pierced through Celestial Venerable Ling's heart from the back. Blood sprayed into the sky and dyed the ink-colored mountains and rivers red. Stumble, stumble. Celestial Venerable Ling covered her bleeding chest and turned her head in disbelief to look at the figure in the distance. When was this? The arrow heavily injured her and destroyed her heart meridians. Celestial Venerable Ling spat out another mouthful of blood and quickly retreated. Tisk, ink flowed in the Mountain River Sword Realm. Every wisp of ink was a sword intent. The Sword Realm had no way out and sealed off the path of retreat for the Supreme Being. One sword 10,000 calamities. Sword 2 swung his sword and howled furiously. Sword light broke through the air and restarted the battle. At the same time, Yi Xuanmiao wielded his sword and stepped forward. His green moth sword hummed as it transformed into a waterfall to seal off Ling Tian's moves. The sword and palm clashed, and the aftermath surged. The power of the broken sword could break mountains and was incomparably sharp. The green moth sword moved strangely, its soft body twisting and twisting as it chased after souls. On the side, Mu Qianshang's sword condensed the mountains and rivers, and the ink white swirled around as it gathered power for the next sword. Outside the ink painting, Falling Star drew his red bow again. The green arrow light gathered and didn't fire, waiting for the right time. In the battle, Celestial Venerable Ling became more and more shocked as she fought. Her heart meridians were heavily injured, and her blood and qi couldn't continue. Her body was severely restricted, and she gradually fell into a disadvantage with her two swords that were both hard and soft. The sword light flashed and blood splattered. The unstoppable changes on the sword were the bell of the Yellow Springs opening the way. The top sword prodigies of the East and Middle States worked together for the first time, and they showed astonishing chemistry. The exquisite sword intent was indescribable. End Forbidden Sword, Illusion Bubbles. After gathering power for a long time, Mu Qianshang stepped into the air and transformed the sword intent around him into a move. In an instant, the end sword was unleashed, and in the sword realm, ink-colored bubbles rose. The bubbles collapsed, and outside the sword realm, heaven and earth also dissipated. Celestial Venerable Ling, who was heavily injured, couldn't hold on any longer. She was enveloped by the ink-colored bubbles, and in an instant, the bubbles collapsed. At this moment, outside of the battlefield, the star scar shattered the sky. The green arrow light arrived in a flash. The Yellow Springs opened the way, and the Grim Reaper took the life. The arrow that had been prepared for a long time penetrated the Venerable One's body and instantly destroyed his vitality. With a loud bang, Ling Tian collapsed to the ground. Be it unwillingness or confusion, all of that flowed into the ground with his blood, no longer important. The mountain and water sword realm dispersed, and Mu Qianshang went forward. He stretched out his hand to close Celestial Venerable Ling's eyes, sending the martial arts practitioner on her way in peace. When Jian Er and Yi Xuanmiao saw this, they did not say anything. Although they had different standpoints, the dignity of a cultivator could not be blasphemed. After finishing what he had to do, Mu Qianshang stood up and looked at Yi Xuanmiao, who was beside Sword 2. He politely asked, "Friend, where are you going?" "Competitive Edge City," Yi Xuanmiao said calmly. "Oh. What a coincidence, we're also going there." With that said, Mu Qianshang glanced at Luo Xingchen, who was walking over, and said, "That despicable person who specializes in backstabbing people, I reckon he is also heading to Competitive Edge City." "Mu Qianshang, you ungrateful bastard, do you believe that I won't turn you into a sieve right now? If I hadn't made a move just now, you would have already been slapped to death," Luo Xingchen angrily said. "I don't know if he can slap me to death, but I do know that there is a saying that a gentleman cannot be shot in the back," Mu Qianshang disdainfully said. "Bullshit, don't think that I don't know that this saying was said by Ji Ming. In this world, he is the one who stabs people in the back the most. Whoever believes his words is an idiot," Luo Xingchen replied. "If the two of you don't leave now, it will be dark soon." "It won't be too late to quarrel on the way," Jian Er said. "Let's go." Mu Qianshang put away his sword and quickly walked forward. Luo Xingchen also followed, no longer quarreling. "I didn't expect that we would coincidentally run into each other today when we usually don't have any news of you," Mu Qianshang sighed. "Coincidental? It's not coincidental at all. I've already been waiting here for several days," Luo Xingchen replied. "Oh. Since you're here first, why don't you go to Competitive Edge City to look for Ji Ming?" Mu Qianshang asked in surprise. "It's a long story." Luo Xingchen's face was filled with displeasure. "You also know how vicious that Ji Ming's mouth is. Last time, I borrowed 600 Origin Immortal Jades from him. If I don't bring some gifts now, do you think that brat will let it go?" "Heh." Mu Qianshang gently smiled. "Speaking of which, we did help you. A peak human sovereign like this is enough to make up for those immortal jades. It's too late to regret making friends," Luo Xingchen sighed. On the side, Yi Xuanmiao was silent for a moment when he heard their conversation. Then he asked, "You are friends of Ji Ming, Marquis?" Mu Qianshang smiled. "We are friends who have gone through life and death together. However, it has always been us going to die while he takes advantage of us." "Ji Ming, Marquis." Yi Xuanmiao paused for a moment before slowly saying, "He is a person who values friendship and loyalty." "Oh. You also know him?" Mu Qianshang asked in surprise. Yi Xuanmiao nodded. "He killed my brother and saved my life. A complicated relationship." Mu Qianshang's eyes flashed with a strange light. "Seeing how you helped me today, I'll give you a piece of advice. Ji Ming, Marquis is not someone to be trifled with. Those who have enmity with him are pretty much all dead. He is cold-blooded and emotionless more than he values friendship and loyalty. Thank you for the reminder. I will seriously consider it." Yi Xuanmiao softly replied. The four of them quickly headed north. When the sun was about to set, the four of them finally arrived at Competitive Peak City. Yi Xuanmiao took out the golden medallion unique to the four crown princes of the Mizar dynasty and stated his purpose for coming. Very quickly, someone came to receive them and led them to Wenxian Palace. Coincidentally, when the four of them arrived at Wenxian Palace, Yin, and Ning Chen had just returned from outside. "Oh, isn't this the famous Ji Ming, Marquis? How did you get beaten up so badly?" Mu Qianshang walked up with a smile. On the wheelchair, Ning Chen was silent. After a moment, he slowly spat out, "Scram." The five of them entered the palace and Yi Xuanmiao left. He first went to the Hall of Venerables to meet the Alliance Sovereign. Of the 5 people in the palace, other than the little girl, the remaining 4 were all comrades from the Battle of Sendu. Ning Chen did not hide anything and directly stood up from the wheelchair, causing the 3 of them to be stunned. Despicable. Shameless. Mu Qianshang and Luo Xingchen recovered and immediately mocked. Jian Er sighed, "We should have thought of this earlier. The three of you, there is tea on the table. Please help yourselves. Ning Chen smiled. Facing a superior supreme, you're actually completely fine. Your luck is really great. Luo Xingchen said unhappily. Luo Xingchen, cut the crap. When are you going to return my 600 immortal sources? Don't tell me you're not planning on not returning them. Ning Chen indifferently said. Luo Xingchen looked at the two people beside him and said, how is it? My guess was right, right? Fortunately, I was a little more careful this time. Otherwise, someone would definitely accuse me of not paying back my debts. Mu Qianshang smiled, Ji Ming, he already returned the 600 immortal sources he owed you. Oh. Why do you say that? Ning Chen walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea, asking softly. Celestial Venerable Ling is dead. Mu Qianshang said seriously. In the Heavenly Manor camp, other than that sword venerable whose meridians were crippled, only Celestial Venerable Ling had such ability. When Ning Chen heard that, the teacup in his hand shattered with a bang. He said in disbelief, are you sure? Yes. Mu Qianshang nodded. Tell me the details of the situation. Ning Chen calmed down the ripples in his heart and said. Mu Qianshang seriously recounted the previous battle, not missing any details. It's indeed him. Ning Chen sighed softly, saying, my three good friends, you guys have really solved a huge problem for me. It's nothing. Luo Xingchen's arrow came at the right time. However, compared to this Celestial Venerable Ling, I'm more curious about how strong the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable is. Jian Er went forward and asked. Unparalleled. Ning Chen said slowly, not to mention other things, just based on combat power, the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable is almost equivalent to half of the King of Hell. The only difference is that Chao Tianxi doesn't have a terrifying physique like the seven ultimate divine body, so his defense is much weaker. Speaking of this, Ning Chen looked at Mu Qianshang and narrowed his eyes slightly. He revealed the kindest smile on his face and said, Brother Mu, I seem to have heard you mention before that the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion's predecessor was the inheritance of the Tao sect, right? When Mu Qianshang heard that, his eyelids twitched. He shook his head and said, you must have remembered wrongly, I didn't say such a thing. Although the cultivation aptitude of the knowing destiny state isn't that great, my memory is still quite good. I can't possibly remember what my good friend said wrong. Ning Chen laughed softly. So what if I said that? Let's say this first, I can help you, but don't think that I will help you deal with the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable. I don't want to die so quickly. Mu Qianshang's expression was full of caution. Of course. Ning Chen laughed softly. How can I let my friends be in danger? At the side, Luo Xingchen and Jian Er heard that and almost spat out the tea in their mouths. How could a person's skin be so thick? The two of you, how is the taste of the tea? Ning Chen looked at the two of them and smiled. The tea isn't bad, but it smells of a conspiracy, replied Luo Xingchen. Heh. Ning Chen laughed softly. Brother Xingchen's taste is truly becoming more and more unique. Even a cup of tea can smell a conspiracy. You're too polite. I've been drinking tea for half my life, and only with you can I taste such an unforgettable taste. Luo Xingchen put down his teacup. Jian Er, who had been quiet all this time, also put down his teacup and calmly said, knowing destiny Marquis, let's talk about serious matters. We've come to help you. Do you have a way to deal with the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable? Ning Chen fell silent. After a long time, he sighed, with my current strength, I can only contend with him in competitive Peak City. Outside of competitive Peak City, there is no one in the 5 regions who can stop the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable. What about your main body? Can you recover the power of the 4 scrolls? Asked Mu Qianshang. My main body is still in Chongling. However, the Chongling female supreme has already sealed Chongling. No one can enter now. Even if they can, it is useless. Back then, my main body was able to resist the Nether King because the teacher had acted. He had turned my main body's 500 years of lifespan into 100 years of foundation, and forcibly completed the life scroll. Together with the 1,000 years of providence of the great Xia, I had the power to resist the Nether King. But now, it is impossible, Ning Chen said honestly. Chapter 580. Outside the Wenxian Palace, the four of them talked for a long time. They were comrades who had gone through thick and thin together. Now, they finally met again to share Jiming's worries. In that case, if you don't find a way to deal with the Heavenly Mansion Star Venerate, your life will be in danger as soon as you leave competitive Edge City, Luo Xingqian said with a frown. I think that should be the case. Ning Chen chuckled. Now, there are countless eyes of the Heaven's Mansion in competitive Peak City. Once I leave the city, the Star Venerable of the Heaven's Mansion will appear soon. It's such a good bait, but I don't have the strength to draw the net. What a pity. The most important thing is still absolute martial strength, Sword 2 sighed softly. Thus, I need Brother Mu's help. Ning Chen looked at Mu Qianshang and said, the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has inherited the Dao Sect's legacy, but there are records of formations. Although I barely managed to restore the Yin-Yang Great Array, I am far from being able to activate it at will like Senior Dao Kuei. The Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has only inherited a portion of the Daoist sect's teachings. There are very few records regarding formations. Furthermore, they are all sealed in the highest level of the pagoda. They are protected by the seals of the Daoist sect's ancestors. How many there are, what they are, and even if there are any, I cannot guarantee, said Mu Qianshang. Brother Mu, can you take me back, asked Ning Chen. Can you leave competitive Edge City? Mu Qianshang asked in confusion. Heh. Ning Chen smiled. He looked at Luo Xingqian and said, Brother Xingqian, there is a small matter that I might need your help with. Speak. Luo Xingqian said unhappily. He knew that Luo Xingqian would not stay idle after coming here. While I'm on my way to the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion, you'll stay here in my place and continue pretending to be injured. The Rui art of changing one's appearance isn't difficult to learn. It's just a small matter for you, Brother Xingqian. Also, I'll ask Sister Qin Ning to cooperate with you. There shouldn't be a problem for a few days, Ning Chen said softly. Come back quickly. I won't be able to last long on such a boring mission, Starfall said. Of course. Ning Chen nodded. When are we leaving? Mu Qianshang asked. Tomorrow. It'll be more convenient to leave the city during the day. We won't attract the attention of the Heavenly Sanctum spies, Ning Chen replied. Heart's Desire Technique, Starfall said as he stretched out his hand. Ning Chen flipped his right hand, and a sheepskin book appeared before he passed it over to the former. Oh, you were prepared, Luo Xingqian said indifferently. There's no harm in being prepared. Who knows when it might come in handy? Ning Chen chuckled. You guys continue chatting. I'm going to help someone out. I made friends carelessly, and it's too late for regrets. Luo Xingqian stood up and sighed. Knowing destiny will always remember Brother Xingqian's kindness, Ning Chen said with a smile. Luo Xingqian waved his hand and did not say anything else. He walked towards the guest room not far away. Ji Ming, it's been a long time since we last exchanged pointers, said Sword 2 calmly after Luo Xingqian left. Mu Qianshang's expression turned serious when he heard this. Their swords were about to reach their limits. Only by obtaining the one and only sword would they be able to advance to the next level. Ning Chen looked at the tea leaves floating in his cup and forcefully suppressed the demonic cultivator's instinctive fighting spirit. After a long time, he faintly smiled and softly said, blades and swords have no eyes. Let's talk about this later. Jian Er was silent. Jiming Marquis was good at fighting, but he was not fond of fighting. However, Jian Er really wanted to fight with him. He was Mu Bai's disciple, and Marquis Jiming was the descendant of Prince Yan. Back then, his master couldn't fight the legend of the Xia dynasty and regretted it for the rest of his life. He wanted to fulfill his master's last wish. "How long will you wait?" asked Jian Er a moment later. Ning Chen's hand paused. He could no longer suppress his instinctive fighting spirit. He slowly said, "When Heaven's mansion retreats, Jiming will accompany you." "All right, I'll wait," said Jian Er. The two of them didn't say anything else. They nodded and went back to rest. Mu Qianshang helplessly shook his head. It seemed there was nothing for him to do. If there was really no other way, finding Luo Xingchen to fight wasn't a bad idea. The moon set and the sun rose. Ning Chen carefully arranged everything for the future. Soon after, he changed his appearance and left the city with Mu Qianshang. In front of Wenxian Palace, a red-robed man in a wheelchair was leisurely basking in the sun, attracting the attention of Heaven's Mansion spies. Outside the city, Ning Chen and Mu Qianshang were heading east, rushing towards the Divine Continent. Half a day later, the two of them stopped in front of the ocean between the two regions. "Why did you stop?" asked Mu Qianshang. "It's nothing. I was just thinking about the past. Let's continue on our way." Ning Chen's feet moved and he rushed forward. Mu Qianshang followed. Not long after, the two of them disappeared into the boundless ocean. The cold moon hung high in the night sky. Halfway through the night, the two of them finally set foot on the Divine Continent. They didn't stop and directly rushed towards the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion. Northwest of the Grand Xia, Azure Frost Valley. It was a place where snow fell all year round. Two figures rushed in and then stopped. Mu Qianshang waved his hand and the void shook. An illusory mirror image appeared and the path ahead reappeared. The two of them walked one after the other. The mirror image dissipated and everything returned to normal. The Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion was an ancient secret realm. Unlike the Azure Frost Valley outside, the secret realm was peaceful and full of life. As expected of a great sect that inherited the Taoist sect's inheritance. "It's really extraordinary," praised Ning Chen. "If you're envious, you can enter Sword Pavilion." "I'll recommend you," said Mu Qianshang casually. Brother Mu isn't worried that Jiming's fate will drag down the entire Sword Pavilion," laughed Ning Chen. "That's true. Just pretend I didn't say anything," said Mu Qianshang. The two of them talked as they walked. Not long after, ancient palaces appeared in front of them. Behind the palaces, there was a towering scripture pagoda that was dozens of feet tall. "Young master." At this moment, a white-robed disciple with an extraordinary temperament appeared and bowed. Mu Qianshang nodded slightly and said, "Bring us to see the pavilion master." "Yes." The white-robed disciple respectfully stood up and led the way. Half-step Xiantian. It seems that after the 5 regions merged, the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has produced many new experts, said Ning Chen as he glanced at the young disciple leading the way. "It's not just Sword Pavilion. It's the same for the entire Divine Continent. But compared to the other 4 regions, it's still far inferior. So no matter what, we can't let the flames of war spread to the Divine Continent," said Mu Qianshang. "I understand." Ning Chen nodded. The Divine Continent needed time to recuperate before it could catch up to the other 4 regions. The current eastern region could no longer withstand the flames of war. As they spoke, the two of them arrived in front of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The disciple leading the way bowed again and left. The two of them entered the pavilion. A middle-aged man stood there quietly with an eager expression. When he saw the two of them, his eyes flashed with excitement. "Master." Mu Qianshang knelt down and bowed respectfully. "Get up." The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master's eyes flashed with tears as he helped his only disciple up. It's good that you're back. Junior Ning Chen greets the pavilion master. Ning Chen gave a junior's greeting. Ning Chen. The heavenly sword pavilion master was startled. A moment later, his expression changed and he said in shock, Jiming Marquis. It had been more than 10 years. If he hadn't heard this name again, he wouldn't have recognized him. It's all in the past. Junior is just a commoner now, said Ning Chen with a smile. Just as the two of them were returning to the eastern region, a streak of light streaked across the central region under the moonlight, heading east at extreme speed. Within Eternal Heavenly City, Chao Tianxi, who was in seclusion, suddenly felt an intense sense of danger approaching. His eyes opened and he rushed out of his stone room. In the west, 3 dragon corpses were rapidly approaching. Behind them, an immortal palanquin was moving at a terrifying speed. It was so fast that mortals would be unable to see it. The immortal palanquin entered Eternal Heavenly City without changing direction. It was just about to collide with the city's transportation formation. Chao Tianxi's expression changed when he saw this. He took a step forward and condensed vast origin energy in his palm to block the immortal corpses. With a bang, rocks were sent flying. The 3 dragon corpses were blocked and their forward momentum slowed. Boom! At this instant, an extremely shocking pressure swept out from within the palanquin. In the next moment, a beautiful figure walked out. She wore a red wedding dress and a red veil. Her appearance couldn't be seen clearly, but she still gave off an indescribable feeling of charm. Chao Tianxi's expression darkened as he sensed the terrifying aura of the woman before him. He no longer cared about his injuries. With a light shout, he unleashed all of his powers. In an instant, a raging storm swept through the 9 heavens, causing the winds and clouds to change color. At the same time, the ghost woman moved. Her slender right hand condensed 8 desolation ghost chi. The 2 experts clashed, causing a huge explosion. The ground between them split apart, and a several 100-mile gorge appeared. It directly split Eternal Heavenly City in 2, east and west. 2 immortal treading experts clashed. The terrifying destructive power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. In just one move, an entire city was destroyed. Everything within hundreds of miles was affected. Ghost Desolation Art, Soul Severing. With the Ghost Desolation Divine Art, the Ghost Lady's ghostly energy surged. Her godly energy could shatter souls and destroy mountains and earth. Chao Tianxi used his spatial energy to meet the Ghost Desolation Art. With a bang, he was forced back several steps, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Snow shatters the world. Chao Tianxi didn't want to drag this battle out. With a flip of his palm, wind and snow began to fall. An extremely cold aura rapidly spread. Yen Di. In the frozen world, the ghost woman's expression turned cold. She raised her slender hand. In an instant, her whole body was covered in bloody light. The void shook, and a purple-gold divine sword slowly fell. The moment it touched her hand, boundless sword pressure spread out. Ah! The sword pressure hit him, causing new and old injuries. Chao Tianxi staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. The world of ice and snow was dyed red. In an instant, the purple sword light flashed, and the world of ice and snow collapsed. Chao Tianxi couldn't recover his chi because of his injuries. The moment he blocked the attack, he was sent flying. The ghost woman didn't attack again. She waved her hand and put away Yen Di. Then she turned around and walked into the palanquin. The 3 dragon corpses took off, pulling the palanquin and continuing east. Boom! In the rumbling, the dragon corpses ran over the formation in the city. The formation in all directions quickly fell apart. 1,000 feet away, the seriously injured Chao Tianxi struggled to get up. Before he could straighten his body, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Come! After a long time, Chao Tianxi managed to stabilize his injuries. He glanced at the formation that was mostly destroyed and said slowly. Star Venerable, a black-robed figure appeared and said respectfully. Tell Tian Xiang that the transportation formation has been destroyed. Tell him to return quickly, Chao Tianxi said tiredly. Yes. The black-robed figure took the order and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 581. In the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion, Ning Chen explained his intentions. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master was silent for a long time before finally agreeing to his request. In front of the scripture tower, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master looked at the two of them and solemnly said, Knowledge Marquis, Qianshang, you have to be careful. In the past 1,000 years, no one has ever entered the final floor of the scripture tower. No one knows what's inside, so you can't be careless. Master, don't worry. We'll be careful. Mu Qianshang nodded. The two of them didn't delay any longer and directly entered the tower. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master looked at the two of them and sighed. Those youths who had needed the protection of their elders had grown to such a level in the blink of an eye. They had long since surpassed them. Inside the pagoda, the two of them walked up level by level. Only when they reached the entrance of the last level did they stop. Ning Chen stepped forward and touched the stone door. The moment his sword intent appeared, it was immediately repelled by a force. What an extraordinary formation! Ning Chen softly said. In the past 1,000 years, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion has tried many times, but we have never been able to break this formation. According to my guess, this formation's endurance is at least equal to a full-powered attack from a human sovereign. If it can't be broken, it will repair itself. Mu Qianshang replied. Let's work together. Ning Chen calmly said. Yes. Mu Qianshang nodded. The two of them stood side by side. True yuan surged around their bodies and rays of swordlight appeared. Their auras were linked together as they worked together to break the formation. The snow sword was unsheathed. Ning Chen condensed his yuan and poured it into the former sword. In an instant, the snow sword's light shone through the scripture tower, illuminating the surrounding 50 miles. Within the secret realm, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's disciples and elders all looked at the scripture tower with shock. Was this their young master's sword? It far surpassed their own. With a loud rumble, the world shook. The formation within the scripture tower violently shook before collapsing and dissipating. At this moment, the dissipating formation suddenly changed. Two rays of sword qi appeared without any warning. One black and one white, one yin and one yang. They shot towards Mu Qianshang at the front. Ning Chen's expression changed and he instantly stepped forward. A white fan appeared and blocked the two swords. Many thanks. Mu Qianshang's eyes focused. There's no need. Be careful. Your master was right. This place isn't simple, warned Ning Chen. The two of them entered the last floor. It was empty before their eyes. There were no ancient books or rare treasures. It was as if it was an empty floor of the pagoda. No one could see anything unusual about it. Strange. Mu Qianshang frowned. The last level of the scripture pagoda was actually empty. Since that was the case, why was there such a powerful array protecting it? Demon. Suddenly, a green light flashed in the tower and the scene changed. In an unfamiliar space, a green figure appeared. His aura was complicated and terrifying. Without saying a word, a terrifying pressure directly attacked the two of them. Pooh! Mu Qianshang and Ning Chen both staggered as they vomited. Mu Qianshang, who was also a Taoist, felt a piercing pain in his consciousness and fainted. Seeing this, Ning Chen stepped forward and supported Mu Qianshang. Looking at the figures in the sky, he coldly asked, "Who are you?" "I am not a person. I am the very high heavens." In the sky, a figure dispersed and turned into 49 men and women. Soon after, they once again merged into one. They continuously changed and their voices were mixed together. It was hard to tell if they were male or female. Ning Chen's expression sank. What was going on? These people's auras were so similar to Senior Dao Leader. You are the Dao Leader. Suddenly, Ning Chen seemed to have thought of something. His eyes narrowed as he slowly asked. Yes and no. I am the very high heavens. As they spoke, the 49 figures merged into one. An ancient sword appeared in their hands and they directly slashed out. The sword that didn't change was so terrifying that it made people's hearts palpitate. Even someone as strong as Ning Chen could no longer hide his aura. The devil chi in his body suddenly erupted. Scarlet sword met the very high heaven's sword. With a bang, blood splattered. Ning Chen retreated several steps and was instantly heavily injured. The dense devil chi that even venerable Subhuti couldn't break through showed signs of collapse in just one move. Demons should not exist in this world. The mixed and indistinguishable voice sounded again. The very high heavens moved and with a flip of his palm, Mu Qianshang's body merged into it. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes turned cold. His figure flashed and he instantly rushed forward. With a slash of his sword, devil chi filled the sky. The very high heavens blocked Scarlet Sword with his sword. His body completely merged with Mu Qianshang. He opened his eyes and sent the former flying. Ning Chen landed on the ground. He didn't care about his right arm that was covered in blood. His eyes stared at the 49 Dao sect monster in front of him and said with a cold tone, "Very high heavens, if you dare to touch him, I will make sure that you will never reincarnate." In front of the very high heavens, lies are useless. The very high heavens sword aura changed and the Taisher ancient sword shone brightly. With a swing of the sword, the illusory world started to distort violently. The sword light attacked. Ning Chen condensed his energy and slashed across Scarlet Sword. At that moment, the baleful aura completely filled the sky. The rolling devil chi converged and the shocking devil chi caused the sky to wail. The two swords clashed and everything was instantly destroyed. Ning Chen retreated 3 steps. A black phoenix appeared behind him. It was a devil chi. Devil technique, blood flames. Scarlet sword swung and the phoenix fire and devil chi surged into the sky. The sword current coiled and broke through the sky. Gentleman's wind. The very high heavens swung his sword and the Taisher ancient sword howled. As the sword wind passed, the blood flames in the sky collapsed. Man follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, Tao follows nature. After a move, the very high heavens used a Tao sect's secret technique. The surrounding heaven and earth energy gathered and a sword light surged into the sky. The terrifying pressure instantly destroyed the illusory world within 100 miles. Seeing the shock of the incoming move, Ning Chen flipped his left palm and pressed it against his Dantian Sea of Qi. At that moment, the seal of yellow springs left behind by the phoenix body collapsed by 30%. The Xian Luo demonic chi sealed within exploded and gushed out. Devil technique, heaven's tears. Enduring the pain all over his body, Ning Chen used heaven's tears again. At that moment, resentment filled the sky and the god imprisonment space spread out, suppressing the Tao sect's very high heaven's power. Oh! The surprised voices of the 49 Tao sect's men and women could be heard. The force of nature on the sword was suppressed and the Tao sect's demonic chi restrained each other. The Taisher ancient sword's radiance fell and his move weakened. Ning Chen took a step forward and the crimson drill went up to meet his move. With the demon phoenix's help, black feathers fluttered. With a loud bang, the crimson drill fell to the ground and dust filled the sky. On the other side, the very high heavens took half a step back and used their sword intent. Dao Chang Wuming. The demonic chi was extraordinary. The very high heavens had the ability to change the world. The sword was clear and the nameless no-beginning sword appeared. Ah! Suddenly, the very high heavens body trembled and figures were shaken out. It was Mu Qianshang's unconscious consciousness that was resisting violently and rejecting the people who entered his body. The nameless no-beginning sword dissipated and the very high heavens' eyes focused. Rays of light flashed and the 10 Dao sect's leaders that left his body returned to him and suppressed the consciousness that was resisting. Junior, resisting your ancestor is foolish. Voices of men and women spoke in unison. Demonic technique, blood path. At this moment, the demon phoenix spread its wings and a ray of blood light swept past. It was fast, it was still fast. The crimson drill sword appeared and blood waves moved the world. Demonic chi, a race that does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. The very high heavens suppressed the consciousness's resistance and slashed out with the Taisher sword, forcing the demonic chi to retreat. The two swords clashed and the Taisher ancient sword's power was unstoppable as it pierced through the demonic chi's chest. Ah! A groan was heard and blood flowed out from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. The Taisher ancient sword entered his body and the Dao energy on the sword spread, instantly injuring the demonic chi's body. However, at this moment, the demonic chi's eyes did not show any signs of panic. Ignoring the injuries in his body, his right hand grabbed onto the Taisher ancient sword's hand and demonic chi gushed out from his body. I've caught you. With a cold shout, the demonic chi in the god confinement space went berserk. The demonic chi rushed into the very high heaven's body. With a rumble, heaven and earth trembled. Demonic chi filled Mu Qianshang's body and the consciousness of the very high heavens shook out. The 49 men and women appeared in the void once again. Ning Chen pulled Mu Qianshang's body and slashed open the illusory heaven and earth with his sword. He then flipped his palm and sent Mu Qianshang out of the battle. Outside the scripture pagoda, Mo Bai's figure flew out. Sky Sword Pavilion Master was shocked and he saw this and leaped into the void to receive the former. Take good care of him. A familiar yet strange voice came from the last floor of the scripture pagoda. Shortly after, the scripture pagoda regained its silence. Sky Sword Pavilion Master looked at the unconscious disciple in his arms and was puzzled. What happened? What did they encounter? Why didn't Jiming Marquis come out with them? In the illusory heaven and earth, the heavily injured demonic chi stood still and blocked the attack of the very high heavens once again. Fresh blood flowed out from his chest and dyed his red robe red. The 49 Taoist sect leaders' consciousness were connected. After thousands of years of assimilation, they had become one. The terrifying soul power was almost solid. Even after leaving Mu Qianshang's body, it was still unstoppable. Fellow cultivators, it's the final move. When one person spoke, the 49 people spoke at the same time. One by one, the figures formed a sword with their fingers. The same action, the same move. The Taoist sect's secret technique reappeared in the mortal world. Demonic technique, Just as the demonic technique was about to be unleashed, Ning Chen staggered once again. His injuries erupted and his sword aura weakened. In the sky, the 49 figures merged into one and the Taisher sword appeared. Man and sword streaked across the sky at extreme speed. With a clang, the sword pierced through the heart meridian and pierced through the body. At the same time, the Taisher soul-stealing technique entered the demonic chi. At this moment, the demonic chi's eyes suddenly opened. The heavily injured heart meridian automatically healed along with the wounds from before. Body of resentment. Suddenly, the mixed voices rang out once more, filled with shock. How is it? Are you satisfied with my Jiming Marquis body? Ning Chen coldly asked. So you don't have a human body, nor a demonic chi. You're just an amalgamation of resentment. The very high heaven sighed. Is that important? Right now, you're trapped in the resentment of the common people. How are you going to escape? Ning Chen coldly asked. You can't trap the very high heavens. A mutated demonic chi is still a demonic chi. Evil will never be able to defeat righteous. The 49 men and women replied. Then I'll wait until the day you come out to prove your righteousness. Ning Chen laughed coldly. He walked to the side of the Taisher sword and waved his hand to put it away. Then, he walked out of the tower. Chapter 582. Outside the Sword Pavilion Scripture Tower, Ning Chen appeared. Seeing the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master healing Mu Qianshang, he walked over and asked, "How is he?" The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master withdrew his hand and let out a sigh of relief. He said, "It's fine. There's a force sealing his consciousness. However, this force is currently dissipating. I believe that Qianshang will wake up soon." "I'm sorry for causing trouble for the Sword Pavilion," said Ning Chen apologetically. "There's nothing to apologize for. Although I don't know what you encountered in the Scripture Tower, the Knowledge Marquis was the first to send Qianshang out in the face of danger. This friendship is more valuable than any apology," said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. "This is what the Knowledge Marquis should do," sighed Ning Chen. This time, it was he who had drawn Mu Qianshang into danger. So no matter what, he had to send Mu Qianshang out safely. Sister Qing Ning had said that although his temperament and ideals were different from the phoenix body, there was one thing he was inferior to. That was taking responsibility. Whatever he did, whether it was right or wrong, he had to take responsibility for it. He did not evade it, he did not avoid it, he had to do it. In truth, the most suitable person to stay behind was not him, but the phoenix body. In the original plan, the phoenix body had wanted to stay in the inner realm and continue to investigate the truth of the immortal corpses. As for going to sky beyond heaven to search for the Jade Lake water, that was left to him. The reason was very simple. Of the three bodies, the phoenix body's speed was unparalleled. He was the only one who could catch up to the immortal corpses. Comparatively speaking, he had devoured half of Xian Luo's body and was much stronger. He was the most suitable person to go to sky beyond heaven. Unfortunately, he had already entered the demonic tribulation and his cultivation was unstable. He had no choice but to let the phoenix body go to sky beyond heaven in his place. He stayed behind to think of a way to survive the demonic tribulation as soon as possible. The second reason was to use his identity as the Alliance's military advisor as a cover to continue paying attention to the immortal corpses. In addition, the final agreement between them was that before the phoenix body returned, he would protect the people he treasured. Demons were never a race that kept their promises. But this time, he could not go back on his word. The cold moon moved west. Night was coming to an end and the east was turning white. The sky gradually brightened. When the first rays of dawn fell, Mu Qianshang, who had been unconscious for a long time, finally woke up. His dazed eyes slowly regained their focus as he looked at the two people in front of him and asked in confusion, "What happened to me?" "It's a long story. I'll tell you when I have time. Rest well and recover first. I still have some things to do, so I'll be gone for a few days," Ning Chen said. You can go." Mu Qianshang's eyes were strange but he did not ask any further. "Pavilion Master, I'll take my leave first. I'll come and disturb you again in 2 days." Ning Chen looked at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master and politely bowed. "I will send someone to escort the Marquis," said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. "Thank you, Pavilion Master, but there's no need for the trouble," Ning Chen replied. Then, he walked along the path he came from and left. "Qianshang, do you not remember what happened in the Scripture Pagoda?" The Heavenly Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master asked as he watched Qianshang disappear. Mu Qianshang carefully thought for a moment before shaking his head. "After entering the final level of the Scripture Pagoda, I seem to have sensed an extremely terrifying aura. Then, I lost consciousness. I don't have any memories of what happened after that or how I came out. It was the Jiming Marquis who sent you out. Although he did not say anything, when he came out, there was a clear smell of blood on his body. Clearly, he had suffered heavy injuries, said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. Mu Qiansheng fell silent. After a long time, he softly sighed, the Jiming Marquis who has harmed his friends time and time again has become stupid this time. Ning Chen walked out of Blue Frost Valley. He turned around to look at the Thousand Snow Lake behind him. A moment later, he turned and left. Half a day later, Ning Chen appeared in front of the entrance to Underworld in the misty forest. The dusky underworld was abnormally quiet. Every step he took, he could clearly hear his own footsteps. The most familiar place was now so unfamiliar. Underworld had existed for an unknown period of time. Like the Eternal Night sect, it had long been untraceable. However, Underworld's golden age was even more distant than Taoism. In the human era, Underworld seemed to be just a mark. It did not display the glory that a great sect should have. Ning Chen entered Underworld. Memories of the past flooded his mind. Every step he took was heavier than the previous. 3 bodies of one mind. Underworld had become a scar that could never be healed in Jiming state. The pain was too deep and the obsession was too deep. Even the demon body could not escape. There was no difference between obsession and resentment. The demon body was the gathering of the resentment of all living beings. Similarly, the demon body could not escape from the obsession of Jiming state. Ghost woman, how can I save you? Ning Chen stopped in front of the Ruo River. The pain in his eyes could not be concealed. The river in the underworld stretched for hundreds of miles without end. The weak water in the river was extremely poisonous. Every tens of thousands of years, the yellow springs flower would bloom at the bottom of the river. Once a person consumed it, he or she would turn into an immortal living corpse, unable to die even if he or she wanted to. Demons actually have human emotions. Aren't they afraid of self-destruction? The voices of men and women mixed together could be heard. Ning Chen didn't answer, and he just stood there silently without saying a word. The netherworld underworld has declined to this extent. The very high heavens spoke again. You know about Underworld's past? Ning Chen frowned as he heard this. Taoism has a long history. The same goes for Underworld. It's a pity that the era of Taoism and Underworld has passed. The very high heavens sighed. Ning Chen was silent. After a long time, he said, how about we make a deal? What deal? The very high heavens asked. You need a host body and I need Taoism's formation. You help me learn Taoism's formation and I help you find a new host body. It's a fair deal. It benefits everyone. Ning Chen calmly said. It's hard for us to trust a demon's promise. The very high heavens replied. Do you have any other choice? Although I can't destroy you now, you also don't have a way to escape. Cooperation is your only hope. Ning Chen faintly said. The 49 men and women quietened down. After a while, they said, deal. Demon, I hope you can remember your promise. Ning Chen nodded and didn't say anything else. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. The demon stood in front of the weak water without moving. It was unknown what he was waiting for or why he was waiting. 3 days later, Devil Chi curled up behind Xi Ming and a black phoenix appeared. The cry of a phoenix rang out and the weak water flowed back into the phoenix's body. Ning Chen brought the weak water but didn't see the person he wanted to see. He silently left. This parting was engraved in his heart. Not long after the demon left, the dragon corpse pulled the immortal palanquin out of the fog forest. The ghost woman got off the palanquin and walked into Underworld. The 2 people who had been drawn by fate had walked the same path again and again. However, the will of the heavens was always toying with them. They weren't willing to let the sinner get what he wanted. Luosha entered underworld and walked step by step into its depths. She was so beautiful in her red wedding dress that it was hard to look at her directly. 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. Luosha never took off her wedding dress. She walked through the endless years, constantly searching for something. In the barbarian palace, Wild stood in front of a courtyard and looked to the west. A rare trace of sadness flashed across her delicate and clean face. "Princess, it's windy outside." "Let's go in," said Hongzhu softly. "Yes." Wild nodded and walked into the courtyard. He wouldn't be coming back. In Azure Frost Valley, Mabai was calmly waiting. Not long after, Ning Chen appeared. He looked at him and said, "Let's go." Mu Qianshang nodded and left with him. "Did you obtain the Daoist formation?" "Yes." "Then that's good." It was a simple conversation, and no one said too much. In an instant, they disappeared into the afterglow of the setting sun. In peak competition city, the two of them returned. When Qin Ning saw them, she let out a sigh of relief. In the past few days, she had been really worried that this matter would be exposed. "Brother Xingchen, many thanks." Ning Chen looked at the person in front of him. "It's nothing." "How did it go?" asked Luo Xingchen. "I obtained the yin-yang formation." Ning Chen's expression became serious. The heavenly mansion star sovereign's injuries aren't light and his cultivation base is far from its peak. This is a rare opportunity. However, with just my strength, I still can't block the heavenly mansion star sovereign. I'll have to trouble my three friends to help me. "Knowing destiny," said Mu Qianshang suddenly. "Oh." Ning Chen didn't understand. "When you're being polite, you look really disgusting," said Mu Qianshang indifferently. "Ha!" Ning Chen smiled. Knowing destiny is being pretentious. Opening the yin-yang formation requires the power of yin and yang to work together. Brother Mu is a Taoist and your cultivation base is of the yin attribute. You're suitable to control the yang formation. As for Brother Jian Er, although you don't have the yang attribute, Desolate City's sword has always used brute force to break through all techniques. It's enough to control the yin formation. As for the rest, leave it to knowing destiny. "What should I do?" asked Luo Xingchen. Ning Chen smiled. "Brother Xingchen, you can continue doing what you're used to doing. Shooting arrows behind people's backs. A gentleman can't shoot arrows behind his back. Isn't that what Brother Ning said before?" said Luo Xingchen. "Did I say that?" "Sorry, I've already forgotten." Ning Chen smiled. Not far away, Yin kicked her legs and said, "You guys be careful." The two people who entered the formation with Ning Chen that day still haven't woken up. When Ning Chen heard this, he looked at the little girl and smiled helplessly. "Yin, who exactly are you with? How can you side with an outsider?" "Sister Qing Ning said they're good people," replied Yin sweetly. "I'm also a good person," said Ning Chen seriously. "You're a bad person." Yin wrinkled her nose. Children's words carry no harm. However, it's really pleasing to the ears. Luo Xingchen was in a good mood. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er listened to the little girl's words and only smiled. They didn't say anything more on this topic. Knowing destiny's actions definitely couldn't be considered gentlemanly. It could even be said that he was unscrupulous. As an enemy, perhaps they had to be on guard at all times. However, as a friend, knowing destiny was definitely someone who could be trusted. "Brother Xingchen, I'll write down the method to open the yin-yang formation later. Although your cultivation body isn't suitable for entering the formation, the battle situation is constantly changing. If any of us three can't hold on, you still have to enter the formation in time and take over the battle," said Ning Chen seriously. "Understood." Luo Xingchen nodded. Chapter 583. In Tianjin City, the unconscious sword venerate was lying in a wheelchair as a maid pushed him out to get some fresh air. In the Battle of the Windless Plains, the two sword venerates had both surpassed the limits of the mortal realm. However, their bodies were restricted and couldn't withstand the sword that surpassed the limits of the mortal realm. In the end, the Alcade king had died, and Mu Changa's soul had been severely injured. His meridians had been shattered, and he had become a living corpse. After losing the Alcade king, the peak powers of the Central Prefecture's sects had suffered heavy losses. Similarly, the Heaven's Sanctum side couldn't withstand such a huge blow. The Heaven's Sanctum's war god was the belief of millions of martial artists in the Heaven's Sanctum. His status wasn't lower than a star venerate's. Not far away, Tianxi walked over and looked at Mu Changa, who was sleeping in the wheelchair, with a gloomy expression. For the future of Heaven's Sanctum, they had lost 10 human supremes and thousands of unborn experts, including the Sword Sovereign. They couldn't back down in a battle for survival. In order to fight for a place for the people of the Heaven's Sanctum, the Heaven's Sanctum had to win this battle. Star Venerate, Venerable Dong Sun said respectfully. Is there really no way to recover from the Sword Venerate's injuries? Chao Tianxi asked. Venerable Dong Sun nodded silently. He had already tried his best. He had tried all the medicines from the pill tower, but they were all useless this time. Xiantian experts weren't true immortals, and their recovery abilities were limited. Once they were injured too severely, they couldn't recover. I understand. You can leave now, Chao Tianxi said. Venerable Dong Sun accepted the order and left. Chang'e, the strength of the inner world is much stronger than I imagined. My body is severely injured, and I can't use my full strength. What's more, the Heaven's Sanctum doesn't have much time left. I can't stay in seclusion to heal. Chang'e, I need your help, Chao Tianxi sighed. Soft whispers reverberated in the quiet courtyard. However, the sword venerable on the wheelchair did not react at all. He did not move at all. The Heaven's Sanctum's war god couldn't stand up again. In Wenxian Palace of Competitive Peak City, Ning Chen stood in front of the window and looked at the night sky outside. He hoped that tomorrow would be the final battle. As long as the Heaven's Sanctum Star Venerate was defeated, the battle would end. You're actually helping this human, demon. You're making the very high heavens more and more unable to understand you. A male and female voice rang out. Why not? Ning Chen asked. I can feel that you don't care about the rise and fall of this mortal realm, so why do you still want to help? The very high heavens asked in confusion. It's just a promise to someone, Ning Chen said calmly. Demons have never been a trustworthy race. You've once again impressed us, the 49 men and women said in unison. There's no need for others to judge the words and actions of those in the knowing destiny state. Very high heavens, if you don't want to disappear from this world with me in tomorrow's battle, it's best that you lend me a hand, Ning Chen said indifferently. If that heavenly palace star venerate's injuries are as you said, then you have at least a 60% chance of winning tomorrow's battle, the very high heavens replied. If a treading immortal expert is so easily defeated, he wouldn't be a treading immortal expert. Do you really think we have a 60% chance of winning tomorrow's battle? Ning Chen said coldly. If you're in danger, you can hand over control of your body to me, and I'll help you escape, the very high heavens suggested. Do you think that's possible? Or do you think that knowing destiny state is that stupid? Very high heavens, you and I are one now. We're bound together for good or ill. Hiding our strength isn't beneficial to either of us, Ning Chen mocked. Demons, it's hard to change your greedy nature. You've already grasped the yin-yang formation, and your body contains the phoenix origin and demon qi, which are of opposite attributes. You alone are enough to open the formation. Even if the three of them die in tomorrow's battle, nothing will happen to you, the very high heavens replied. Ning Chen sneered, same to you. There are countless people in this world who claim to be righteous, but in the end, the one who has to risk his life for this mortal realm is me, a demon. Very high heavens, you don't have the qualifications to judge me. No one has the qualifications to do so. Furthermore, Mu Qianshang and the others won't die in battle, nor do they have any obligation to die in battle. With me here, even if everyone in the mortal realm dies, they won't die. Madman, the 49 people said. Very high heavens, don't judge a demon with the mindset of a human. I'm willing to keep my promise because I'm still willing. However, a demon's patience is limited. When the day comes when I'm no longer willing, you'll know what a true demon is, Ning Chen said coldly. You can't kill the very high heavens, the 49 people said calmly. Is that so? Ning Chen sneered, I can't kill you, but what about the treading immortal realm? Do you think that if I withdraw from this battle in exchange for your life and the peace of the Eastern Domain, that Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign will agree? The 49 Dao sect leaders fell silent. After a long time, they said, what exactly do you want? An absolute life-saving method. Not only my life, but also Mu Qianshang and the others, Ning Chen said coldly. Dao sect taboo, very high taboo sword, the 49 people said slowly. The next day, the sovereigns gathered in the conference hall. Ning Chen looked at the human sovereigns in front of him and said, let's go. Yes. The sovereigns accepted the order and left the hall together. Advisor, do we really not need the help of human sovereigns? Zhao Liusu asked worriedly. Ning Chen glanced at the 3 people waiting outside the hall and said indifferently, they are the strongest human sovereigns. These friends who had been in the same boat in the past. Although their cultivations were only at the half-step human sovereign realm, their battle strength would not lose to anyone. Most importantly, they were trustworthy. Tacit understanding required absolute trust. Only with these people could he be at ease in handing over his back in battle. Ning Chen walked out of the conference hall and looked at the 3 people. He said softly, once the time is up, we will leave immediately. What if we can't win? Mu Qianshang asked. Don't worry about anything. Just run, Ning Chen said without hesitation. Ji Ming, did you really learn the sword from master? Jian Er sighed. Comparing me to Senior Mu Bai is smearing Senior Mu Bai's reputation. Brother Jian Er, don't ask too much of me, Ning Chen smiled. Don't worry, I support you. Luo Xingchen patted Ning Chen's shoulder. If you can't win, then run. That's right and proper. Preserving your life is the most important thing. Jian Er helplessly shook his head. He was about to be brainwashed by these fellows. At the front lines of the 2 armies, the Alliance's human sovereigns suddenly attacked. The Heavenly Mansion's army, which had originally held the advantage, immediately fell into a crisis and was forced to retreat. Within Eternal Heaven City, Xiao Libi, who was repairing the teleportation formation, immediately ordered the human sovereigns of the 10 cities to reinforce the front lines. The human sovereigns left one by one. At this time, a secret report was sent directly into Chao Tianqi's hands. The contents of the letter were very simple. There were only a few numbers, but it was the most anticipated result. Ji Ming Marquis had left competitive Peak City and was heading to the front lines of the 2 armies. Minister Tian, you guard Eternal Heaven City. I'll go kill Ji Ming Marquis. Chao Tianqi walked out. Xiao Libi's eyes turned serious. Star Sovereign, the situation isn't right. It might be a trap. We can't miss this opportunity. Their human sovereigns are tied down by our human sovereigns. It'll be very difficult for them to escape. As long as we kill Ji Ming Marquis, this war will quickly end, said Chao Tianqi coldly. Why don't we send someone to probe first? With Ji Ming Marquis scheming, there's no way he doesn't know the danger of leaving the city, suggested Xiao Libi. There's no time. Minister Tian, don't worry. Even if I'm injured, I'm not someone 3 human sovereigns can stop. Moreover, the Alliance's human sovereigns can't just appear out of nowhere. Even if I can't kill Jiming Marquis, I won't be in danger. As he spoke, Chao Tianqi stepped into the air and instantly disappeared into the northern horizon. Xiao Libi didn't have time to stop him. Looking towards the north, the worry in his eyes grew. In the northern part of the Central Plains, 1,000 miles away from the front lines of the two armies, Ning Chen was walking alone. Suddenly, the pressure in the world dropped. The sky that had been clear just a moment ago was now covered in dark clouds. Heavenly Minister descends. Ning Chen softly muttered. Treading immortals were truly much stronger than human sovereigns. They hadn't even appeared, but their auras were already so shocking. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a green arrow shot into the sky. Its powerful might instantly pierced through the dark clouds, creating a hole with a radius of 1,000 feet. In the next moment, the arrow's power dissipated and a fairy-like woman descended from the sky. Her white robes fluttered as the azure arrow in her hand shattered. "It's just the four of you?" asked Chao Tianqi calmly. "It's enough to kill you." Mu Qianshang and Jian Er walked out from the left and right. In the distance, starlight gathered on the star-scar heavenly bow and an azure arrow appeared once more. "Jiming Marquis, you've been smart your entire life. But today's mistake will cause you to be buried here forever," said Chao Tianqi coldly. "There's no point in talking." "Let's fight," said Ning Chen indifferently. "As you wish." There was a flash of moonlight as Chao Tianqi took the initiative to attack. A powerful palm energy tore through the air. Yin and Yang, activate formation. Genesis Supreme appeared and Yin and Yang appeared. Ning Chen condensed his Yuan energy and slashed it across his sword. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er simultaneously circulated their qi. In an instant, one black and one white light soared into the sky. A Taiji diagram appeared in the air and the Yin and Yang formation was activated. The Yin and Yang formation rotated endlessly. Chao Tianqi entered the formation and immediately felt the pressure. His palm energy weakened. With a clang, the two formations rotated. Mu Qianshang was the first to receive the attack. The flames of his mountain and river's sword domain soared. As the palm energy passed by, its power was reduced by more than half. Then the Yin formation rotated and a powerful swordlight met the attack. With one move, the two of them received each other's moves. Yin and Yang worked together and their powerful palm energy dissipated. An extraordinary formation and exquisite battle technique. In just one move, Chao Tianqi's expression became grave. What a good Jiming Marquis. Not only did he bring the Yin and Yang formation out of competitive Peak City, he even evolved it to such a degree. This person could not be allowed to live. Ha! Thinking of this, Chao Tianqi condensed his qi. Ignoring his internal injuries, he forcefully activated his cultivation technique. In an instant, his azure hair broke free and wildly danced in the air. The power of an immortal trampling exploded. Chapter 584. In Xihua Mountain, the flames of war were ignited. The three swords of Yin and Yang locked onto the Star Venerables. In the distance, Star Mark drew his bow, ready to provide assistance at any time. In an instant, the atmosphere froze. Within the array, Chao Tianqi's wildly dancing black hair fell down. An indescribable pressure spread out. "Be careful." At the center of the two formations, Ning Chen's expression turned serious as he spoke. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er nodded, fully focused, preparing for the real battle. Qingxue cripples the world. A moment later, Chao Tianqi made his move. The moonlight flashed, and the vast power of his palm went straight for the knowing destiny state. The sword and palm clashed. Yin and Yang moved on the Taisher sword as it took on the might of the celestial trampling. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the formation unloaded the force. The mountains within 100 li collapsed and huge rocks flew everywhere, smashing open huge craters. Within the formation, Ning Chen took half a step back. His sword condensed yang fire and slashed out. The snowflakes melted and condensed again in the blink of an eye. Chao Tianxi's palm power was unparalleled. His body was covered in wind and snow, and his power was shocking. Sky Breaker. With the support of yin and yang, Taisha roared. Sharp sword qi cut through the air. The sword light shone, and Chao Tianxi turned his palm to meet it head-on. With a bang, the sword qi scattered in all directions and disappeared into nothingness. Bloody path. In the aftermath, the sword light appeared again. The extremely fast sword arrived in the blink of an eye. Clang! Ning Chen's palm energy blocked the sword, and the sword couldn't move an inch. Ning Chen shouted, and the black and white airflow on the sword spun rapidly, increasing the sharpness of the divine weapon. Chao Tianxi's face turned cold as he unleashed his palm energy. With a loud bang, the person in front of him was sent flying. Being restrained in one move, the phoenix manifested. The knowing destiny body quickly turned back and turned into a flowing light, reappearing in the world at top speed. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 moves had been exchanged at extreme speed. Sword qi and palm force swayed in all directions, and the clanging sounds were incessant. Suddenly, the red coat retreated, and the yang formation arrived in the blink of an eye. The sudden change in sword momentum was unparalleled. Jian Er, who had been gathering power for a long time, slashed out with the broken sword in his hand. Heaven and earth within 100 miles fell with a sound. The sky shook, and Chao Tianxi took half a step back. The moment the sword qi entered his body, he pushed his palm again, and with a bang, he shattered the sword qi. The heavenly palace star venerate was strong, so strong that it could not be shaken. Every move of the heavenly palace star venerate, who had regained the power to trample the heavens, contained a heaven-shaking might that could not be blocked. Sword style, one sword 10,000 calamities. Another sword move was unleashed, causing the void to shatter, reaching dozens of miles away. The shocking sword might caused heaven and earth to mourn. As the sword passed, yin and yang rotated again. The inky white sword realm descended. The snow sword passed through, and the inky sword light broke through the air. 2 streaks of sword light, one in front and one behind, one yin and one yang. The quality of the sword wills were of completely different attributes. They split the heavens and the earth and shattered everything. Void destruction. Chao Tianxi's expression was solemn as he raised his slender hand. Using the space 3 feet in front of him as the boundary, the void in front of him was annihilated and turned into void. There was a shocking explosion and the shockwaves roared out. The 2 people in the formation were forced back several steps, their arms dyed red. The 2 of them retreated, and Hongyi shivered once more. Taisha refined yin and yang, and with the support of the formation, his speed increased by several times. Even someone as strong as the heavenly mansion star venerate didn't dare to be careless in the face of a sword that had surpassed the pinnacle and was closing in on the only sword. Sounds of earth-shattering collisions rang out. Shihua Mountain seemed to have suffered the wrath of the heavens. Rocks flew everywhere, and the calamity of the end of the world was shocking. At this point, heaven and earth resonated. Every move had the power to shake the heavens and earth, and every move could stir up the changes of wind and thunder. The 3 swords of the divine prefecture that stood at the pinnacle reappeared, the glory of the battle against the lord of the underworld. Gradually, the 4 of them were dyed red. White clothes and red clothes were in front of them, and they were so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The 2 sides in the formation each had their own persistence. One was for the people of the heavenly mansion, and the other was for the promise they had made. No one was willing to back down. The battle continued to cycle. 1 sword advanced, 2 retreated. They attacked and defended well, and they suffered injuries at the same time. They didn't show any openings. On the other side, the heavily injured Chao Tianxi no longer held back for the people of the heavenly mansion. He didn't care about the consequences of destroying his own foundation, and he used all his remaining strength to fight the three swords of the pinnacle. The battle reached a climax, and blood splattered on the formation. The four of them retreated together, their clothes dyed red. Jiming Marquis, you're too confident. You want to kill me with this formation? Foolish. After a long battle, Chao Tianxi calmed himself down and raised his hand. Wind and snow poured down like a waterfall, and he used the celestial trampling technique again. Heavenly clear snow, chasing waves sinking death. Waves of snow poured out, and yin and yang were out of balance. The moment the three of them met the attack, they were all heavily injured. Blood splattered, and they were forced back a few steps. The yin and yang formations became unstable. Sword 2 and Mu Qianshang didn't care about their injuries, and they stabbed their swords into the ground to stabilize the formation. Nirvana. The battle was tipping. Ning Chen took a step and leaped into the air. Taisher slashed, and rays of sword light crisscrossed out. The magnificent sword Qi slashed towards the heavenly mansion star venerate with the momentum of falling from the heavens. It was a move that surpassed the limit. Chao Tianxi raised his palm to block the move, and he took a dozen steps back. After a dozen steps, the sword will dissipated. Chao Tianxi suppressed the surging qi and blood in his body, and his palm gathered the power of wind and snow to counter the move. The yang formation rotated, and the sword realm blocked the wind and snow. In an instant, the mountains and rivers collapsed and quickly dissipated. The aftershock caused Mu Qianshang to fly back a dozen feet, and he vomited blood. Opposite him, Chao Tianxi's mouth was also dyed red, and the genuine qi in his body became more and more unstable. Sword form. At this moment, Knowing Destiny and Sword 2's figures flashed, and they stepped into the air. The swords on their swords combined for the first time. In an instant, the wind and clouds on their swords changed, and rays of sword light gathered from all directions. The yin and yang swirled, and the sound of swords resounded in the world. The move of returning to the origin was launched. 1,000 swords greet the ancestor. Amidst the roar, the Taiji formation whirled rapidly, and an endless stream of swords fell like rain. With the power of the two, the seventh sword of proving heaven finally appeared. The sword closest to Tao was limitless, infinite, and unknown. The wind and clouds turned into swords, and the sand turned into swords. Everything in the world turned into swords. 10,000 swords approached him, and Chao Tianxi's expression was unprecedentedly serious. He raised his slender hand, and his protective genuine qi surged out, blocking the rays of sword light. Ah! The clanging of swords was incessant. Suddenly, a sword broke through the qi shield, and pierced through his body, dyeing his white clothes red. After blocking 10,000 swords, one sword was hit, and the last sword broke through the qi shield, instantly injuring the heavenly mansion star venerate. Illusion bubbles. An opportunity appeared. Within the yang formation, Mu Qianshang endured his injuries, and pushed his body to the limit. The sword realm spread out, and the final move appeared again. Suddenly, bubbles rose between heaven and earth, and it was difficult to distinguish between reality and illusion. After a while, the bubbles burst, and the dreamland collapsed. Everything in the bubbles disappeared along with the dreamland. Blood spurted out, and spilled onto the ground. Chao Tianxi staggered and coughed up blood. With new injuries and old wounds, the heavenly mansion star venerate's strength was getting weaker and weaker. At this moment, the star mark that had been gathering for a long time shone brightly, and an arrow pierced through the air, and swept towards the battle in an instant. As the danger approached, Chao Tianxi gathered his strength and blocked the green arrow light. Suddenly, another change occurred, and an arrow appeared within the arrow, and a golden arrow light broke out from the green arrow, and instantly pierced the former's chest. After a few steps, blood flowed out from his chest, and dyed his already red clothes red again. Seeing that the former's defeat was certain, Ning Chen's eyes flashed a little, and he was puzzled. The heavenly mansion star venerate's injuries were more serious than expected. In the battle, Chao Tianqi barely stabilized his body, and immediately vomited another mouthful of blood. Chaotic true qi rushed out from his body, and brought out a waterfall of blood mist. In just 1 year, as a one-star venerate, Chao Tianqi had taken on too much. Breaking the Netherworld King's boundary, breaking into the immortal execution forbidden land, blocking the 10-star venerates of the Alliance, entering the Yin-Yang Great Formation, and not long ago, accidentally fighting with the patrolling Immortal Corps. The continuous battles caused his injuries to accumulate, and his body was already on the verge of collapse. However, for the future of the heavenly mansion, he suppressed his injuries again and again, and held on until now. However, this time, he could not hold on anymore. Jiming Marquis, I've lost, but the heavenly mansion cannot lose, so I cannot let you live. As soon as he finished speaking, Chao Tianqi's eyes flashed with determination. He gave up half of his body and stomped on the ground. In an instant, hundreds of miles of land caved in. Raging waves of snow rolled out. Hundreds of miles of land were frozen, and thousands of miles of snow drifted. He used the last of his strength to make a move that would take him down with him. Even if he died, he would drag the enemy of the heaven's sanctum into hell. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed. Heaven and earth wailed. 100 li around them froze, and space froze. Ning Chen's expression sank. Phoenix flames rose from his sword, gathering the power of yin and yang. He forcefully opened up a path in the ice and snow. Then, he shouted at the two of them, "Run! No, if we leave, the yin and yang of the yin-yang Great Formation will be unbalanced. If we leave, we have to leave together." Mu Qianshang was unwilling to retreat. "There's no time. I have my own way of escaping. Hurry and leave. You'll only be a burden to me." Ning Chen angrily roared, and Genesis Supreme reversed yin and yang in his hand. The Taiji diagram in the sky exploded, and the powerful impact instantly sent the two of them flying. "Let's go." 3,000 feet away, the two of them landed on the ground. Sword 2 grabbed Mu Qianshang and used the momentum to rush out. The two of them had just left when the ground around them began to freeze. The path of life had dissipated, and the world had turned white. There was not the slightest trace of life left. 100 miles away, the two of them reappeared. Mu Qianshang forcibly broke free from Sword 2's grasp and was about to charge back into the battle. "Do you want to die?" Sword 2's figure flashed, blocking his path. "Out of the way." The furious Mu Qianshang no longer cared about reason or friendship. He slashed out with his snow sword, pushing Sword 2 aside. Sword 2's expression changed, and he once more blocked the path with his broken sword. "Are you crazy? If you go in now, you'll just be sending yourself to death." Scram! Mu Qianshang's snow sword no longer held back. He slashed out, forcibly opening a path. Knowing that Mu Qianshang wouldn't listen to his advice, Sword 2 no longer said anything. He raised his sword to block, using all his strength to prevent him from going in. Behind the two of them, the world had already turned into a world of ice and snow. Looking around, everything was white. An immortal treading immortal's life-risking move was so terrifying that it made people tremble. Within the endless ice and snow, heaven and earth, laws, and myriad phenomena were all annihilated into nothingness. "You, who are you?" "I am not a person. I am the very high heavens." Within the ice prison, the white-haired life-knowing expert slowly spoke. A yin and yang formation appeared around him, creating a pure land within the world of ice and snow. "Why did you save me?" "Because I wanted to save you." Ning Chen's eyes changed once more, and his white hair turned black. He suppressed the very high heavens consciousness and calmly said, Chapter 585. In the only pure land in the ice hell, Ji Ming's phoenix energy and demonic qi surged around him. There was no longer any human emotion in his cold eyes. "You're a demon." Chao Tianxi looked at the person in front of him in shock. "Does it matter what I am?" "The heavenly mansion star venerable, you've lost," Ning Chen said coldly. "The winner takes all." "You shouldn't have let me live," Chao Tianxi said weakly as he coughed violently. Blood kept dripping from the corner of his mouth. Seeing that the space around them had stabilized, Ning Chen withdrew his aura and said calmly, "I don't want to face a crazy minister of heaven. If you die, the war will only be more intense. A living heavenly mansion star venerable is more valuable." "You want to use me to threaten minister of heaven," Chao Tianxi said. "Threaten? You underestimate Ji Ming. Star venerable, it's time to tell us why the heavenly mansion started this war." "There's no point in hiding it anymore," Ning Chen said. "To survive." Tiredness flashed across Chao Tianxi's eyes as he said slowly, "Soon, the Tianfu star will be destroyed. Jiming Marquis, no matter what happens to me, this war will not stop. Even if I lose the star venerables, the Tianfu star still has the Tianxiang Emperor. Our strength will not lose to the Five Territory Alliance." So, something really happened to the heavenly mansion. Ning Chen squinted his eyes. He had felt that something was wrong. The heavenly mansion had to pay a huge price to invade the 5 regions. This wasn't good news. It meant that the heavenly mansion would never admit defeat. They would fight to the death to survive. Chao Tianxi was right. The heavenly mansion had lost the star venerable, minister of heaven, and 1 star. The inner world still didn't have the upper hand. After thinking for a long time, Ning Chen said seriously, "Star venerable, the heavenly mansion will retreat. I promise to give the people of the heavenly mansion a place to live." Chao Tianxi's body shook. He looked at Ning Chen and said, "Can your words represent the 5 Territory Alliance? Even though the heavenly mansion doesn't have as many people as the inner world, we still need a region to accommodate the people of the heavenly mansion. Giving up an entire region is impossible. Once the commoners of the heavenly sanctum are moved to the inner realm, they will be scattered across the 5 regions. Furthermore, the heavenly sanctum's army will also be dispersed. Whether it's you or that heaven minister, neither of you can interfere, nor can you summon them again for any reason," said Ning Chen. "Impossible. What you're doing is destroying the heavenly sanctum's inheritance." Chao Tianxi's expression sank and he directly refused. According to this arrangement, it wouldn't be long before the Heaven Palace was completely assimilated by the inner realm. The name of the Heaven Palace would only exist in name. "Star Sovereign, you have to think this through. There isn't much time left for the heavenly sanctum. Although the inner realm doesn't have the advantage in this war, it isn't certain that they will lose. In addition, it won't be easy to send the people of the heavenly sanctum to the inner realm. I don't think 3 or 5 years will be enough. Star Sovereign, do you want to save more people or do you want to stick to the so-called inheritance of the heavenly sanctum?" "Think carefully," said Ning Chen coldly. After hearing Ning Chen's words, Chao Tianxi's expression changed again and again. He said in a deep voice, "How can you guarantee that the 5 Territory Alliance and the other sects won't wantonly slaughter or make things difficult for my people after I disperse the army of the heavenly sanctum?" Ning Chen smiled faintly and said, "Star Sovereign, this is your problem, not mine. As long as you can intimidate the other sects, the people of the heavenly sanctum will naturally be safe." Chao Tianxi was silent. After a long time, he raised his head and said with a burning gaze, "As long as the inner realm agrees to peacefully accept the people of the heavenly sanctum, I agree to withdraw my army." "Star Sovereign, words are no guarantee. Your existence is ultimately too dangerous. You and I both know the consequences of letting a tiger return to the mountains. Please swear an oath as proof," said Ning Chen calmly. Chao Tianxi sighed and immediately swore an oath with the heavens as proof. The oath merged with the heavens and the earth and was witnessed by the heavens. Ning Chen smiled and said, I will arrange for the formal peace talks as soon as possible. In 10 days, the two armies will respectfully await your arrival. Jiming Marquis, I can't attack you now. Can you tell me whether Mu Jin is dead or alive? Asked Chao Tianqi softly. She Mu Jin. Star Sovereign, don't worry. She is still alive. Perhaps you will be able to see her soon, said Ning Chen honestly. Thank you. Chao Tianqi sighed. Star Sovereign, I will take my leave. Be careful on the way back. I think after the peace talks, we will have a lot to talk about. Ning Chen smiled as he spoke. Then, he turned around and left. Chao Tianqi sighed again and coughed a few times. His figure gradually disappeared in the ice and snow. 100 miles away, the sound of swords was ear-piercing. Luo Xingchen quickly rushed over to stop the two from fighting. Jian Er, Mu Qianshang, if you continue fighting, prepare to collect Jiming's corpse. Shouted Luo Xingchen angrily. Move aside. Mu Qianshang pushed Jian Er away with his sword and directly rushed into the ice and snow hell ahead. Jian Er and Luo Xingchen followed behind and disappeared into the ice and snow. At this moment, a red figure walked out from the depths of the ice and snow world. Looking at the three people rushing over, she said softly, Everyone, where are you going? Mu Qianshang stopped, his eyes filled with disbelief. Good friend, why are you looking at me like that? Shouldn't you be happy that I'm fine? Ning Chen smiled. As expected, good people don't live long, but scourges live for 1,000 years. Jiming, your life is really not ordinary. Luo Xingchen suppressed the joy in his heart, but his mouth was still unforgiving. It's good that you're alive. Jian Er was a man of few words. He simply said one sentence and did not say anything else. Let's go. We'll talk on the way. Ning Chen smiled. The three nodded and moved forward together, rushing toward Competitive Edge City. Competitive Edge City, Conference Hall. The Venerables had been waiting patiently for a long time. The moment Ning Chen entered the hall, many pairs of eyes immediately looked over, waiting for the answer they wanted. The Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign is not dead. However, the Heavenly Mansion will retreat soon, said Ning Chen calmly. The Venerables in the hall all shook. Regret, shock, and confusion. Advisor, what happened? Asked Zhao Yosu. The Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign has already agreed to the peace talks. Ning Chen didn't talk about the details of the battle. He only told them about the agreement he had reached with the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign. Then he looked at the Venerables in front of him and said, Venerables, this is the best result for the 5 regions. I don't want to see anyone destroy this peace talk. There's no problem with accommodating the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, but the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign's existence will be the greatest threat to the inner realm. If she doesn't die, there will be no end of trouble in the future, said Venerables Qinyu. She has already sworn that as long as you don't target the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, she won't appear in front of you again. She also won't gather any more soldiers, said Ning Chen indifferently. The Venerables frowned slightly. They were quite dissatisfied and uneasy. Ning Chen ignored their thoughts and walked out of the hall. Venerables, the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign only agreed to retreat because she wants to save more commoners. Don't think that she will be manipulated by others. I think she knows better than anyone that as long as she is alive, the Heavenly Mansion's commoners can live better lives. That's all I have to say. Everyone, think about it carefully. Ning Ming left. The Venerables present looked at each other, each with their own thoughts. On the main seat, Zhao Yosu sighed inside. In truth, as long as the inner realm didn't make things difficult for the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign wouldn't be a threat. There was no need to say what these Venerables were thinking. If the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign died and the Heavenly Mansion's army was dismissed, the Heavenly Mansion's commoners' fates could be imagined. In Wenxian Palace, when Ning Chen returned, Yin was the first to run over to greet him. She looked left and right. When she saw that he wasn't missing an arm or a leg, she ran off to the side to play. Ning Chen smiled. This girl had been out for quite some time. When he had time, he should send her home. How are your injuries? Qing Ning walked up and softly asked. They're fine. I'll be fine after resting for a while, replied Ning Chen. I've already heard about today's battle from Mu Qiansheng and the others. I don't understand. Why did you leave the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign alive? Asked Qing Ning. A balance. Ning Chen calmly said, it's a balance between the inner realm and the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign. The current situation is actually very clear. Aside from the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign's own strength, the Heavenly Mansion's army and the Inner Realm's army are in a stalemate. If they continue fighting, no one will gain an advantage. In order to survive, the Heavenly Mansion will not retreat. In order to protect their own interests, the Inner Realm's sects won't easily back down. The biggest losers in this war are undoubtedly the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion and the Inner Realm. In the end, it's very likely that the Central Plains will be split apart and then both sides will temporarily stop fighting. This is the most undesirable result and also the result with the greatest hidden danger. Once the Heavenly Mansion or the Inner Realm starts fighting again, the flames of war will never stop. Chao Tianxi wants the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion to have a place to live. For this, he is willing to make any sacrifice. This is the best opportunity for peace. Among the conditions I proposed, the Heavenly Mansion sects will lose the most benefits. The root of this is that the Heavenly Mansion's army is made up of the various sects of the Heavenly Mansion. Disbanding the Heavenly Mansion's army means disbanding the various sects of the Heavenly Mansion. Chao Tianxi is willing to give up his status as a star sovereign for the sake of the people of the Heavenly Mansion. However, not all the Heavenly Mansion's sovereigns are willing to make such a sacrifice. In addition, after the peace talks, the Heavenly Mansion's sovereigns will need someone to intimidate them. Otherwise, it will be quite troublesome. Finally, I left Chao Tianxi behind to hang a sword over the heads of the sects of the Central Plains and the other regions. Whether Chao Tianxi lives or dies has no effect on the commoners of the Inner Realm. What will really affect is the ambitions of the sects of the 5 regions. Back then, the Purple Sky Palace and the Demon Buddha took advantage of the fact that most of the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture died in the Great Tribulation of the Underworld to seize the source of the Divine Prefecture. The lesson is still fresh in my mind. I don't want to see something similar happen again. During the process of the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion integrating into the Inner Realm, if anyone takes the opportunity to do something that angers the heavens, they will have to carefully consider whether they have the life to withstand the anger of a cultivator who has stepped into the immortal realm. After hearing Ning Chen's words, Qing Ning fell silent. After a long time, she sighed softly and said, putting aside their positions, the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign is indeed worthy of respect. He is worthy of the name of one-star Tian Shi. If there comes a day when the Inner Realm is also faced with the threat of destruction, how many of the sovereigns of the Inner Realm will be willing to sacrifice so much for the commoners of the 5 regions? Chapter 586. Wenxian Palace. On the eve of the peace talk, Mu Qiansheng, Luo Xingqian, and Jian Er appeared to say their goodbyes. They had left their own matters to help, but now that it was over, it was time for them to leave. Qing Ning brought wine over and did not disturb the 4 of them. Women often did not understand the feelings between men, nor did they need to understand. Yin sat in front of the door, her hand supporting her head as she looked at the 4 of them in a daze. Ji Ming, to my friends. Ning Chen raised his wine jug and said seriously. Bang! The wine jugs clinked, and Yin was speechless in the wine. The four of them drank a mouthful of wine, bitter and spicy. Ji Ming, I will wait for you in Desolate City. Once you're done here, don't forget our arranged battle. Jian Er put down his wine jug and left first. I'm also leaving. See you later. Luo Xingchen also put down his wine jug and waved his hand before leaving. Good friend, take care. Finally, Mu Qianshang said his goodbyes and looked at Yin Er. Yin Er, quickly grow up and be big brother Qianshang's bride. I don't want to. Yin hastily shook her head and directly refused. That's too much of a blow. Mu Qianshang laughed and then left. Take care. In front of Wenxian Palace, Ning Chen softly muttered as he watched the three of them leave. Meeting was difficult, parting was also difficult. This time, it was unknown when they would meet again. These people really grow up quickly. Qing Ning walked out and sighed. How can a region's geniuses lose to anyone? They're the only ones left in the once prosperous divine continent. Ning Chen sighed. Teacher, Dao Kuei, Mu Bai, Eternal Night Hierarch, Jian Yi, Marquis Triumphant Return, even if they were restricted by the heavens and earth and their cultivation could not advance, their final martial path achievements were still supreme. If they were still alive, the divine continent would not need to fear anyone. After the peace talk, where do you plan to go? Asked Qing Ning. I'll find the heavenly mansion star venerate to have a talk. Then I'll continue searching for the immortal corpses. What about me? Yin Er asked to make her presence known. Ning Chen squatted down and rubbed the girl's hair. Yin Er, you've been out for a while. Do you want to go back? Yin Er slapped away the large hand on her head and pouted. You're burning the bridge after crossing the river. Heh. Ning Chen laughed softly and said, you can also follow me. I'll teach you martial arts, real martial arts. Qing Ning's expression froze when she heard this. She understood what he meant. Have you decided? Qing Ning asked seriously. Yes. Ning Chen nodded and said with a smile, other than Qi, I have never truly accepted a disciple. Didn't Sister Qing Ning say that a person must be responsible? I owe the sword master a favor, so I'll return it to Yin Er. Can I not call you master? Yin Er probed. Sure, you can call me whatever you want. I told you to call me Big Brother Ning before, but you didn't call me that. Ning Chen chuckled. Yin Er nodded happily and said, then you have to accompany me back to the sword crafting villa and tell Grandpa Sword Master about this. Yes, after the peace talks tomorrow, we'll go, Ning Chen replied. I'll go prepare for the apprenticeship ceremony, Qing Ning said. No need to go through so much trouble. After saying that, Ning Chen waved his right hand and a wine cup flew from the table in the hall and landed in front of the little girl. Yin Er, toast me with a cup of wine, Ning Chen said seriously. Yin Er picked up a wine jar and poured a cup. Then she brought it in front of Ning Chen and smiled. You're not allowed to go back on your words. Ning Chen smiled and took the wine from the little girl's hand. He drank it in one gulp and officially accepted her as his disciple. Beside him, Qing Ning shook her head helplessly. What a messy apprenticeship ceremony. Apprenticeship ceremony. After the ceremony ended, Yin spread out her hands and said confidently. Ning Chen stretched out his hand and gently tapped the little girl's forehead. Immediately, a complicated scripture entered the latter's mind. What is this? Yin shook her head and asked in confusion. Heavenly scripture, Ning Chen said softly. Hearing this, Yin eyes flashed with surprise. Heavenly scripture. She seemed to have heard of it. Don't tell others. Many people want to snatch this thing, understand? Ning Chen reminded her. Yes, I understand. Yin nodded her head vigorously and agreed. After doing this, Ning Chen thought for a moment and stood up. He looked at the girl in front of him and said, Sister Qing Ning, and I'm just saying if, my identity is accidentally exposed and I have to face the various sects again, please take care of Ian. Don't say such discouraging words. That day won't come, Qing Ning reprimanded softly. Ning Chen smiled and didn't say anything else. No one knew what would happen in the future. The existence of the devil wouldn't be tolerated by the world. Sister Qing Ning, what are you talking about? Ian was confused and didn't understand. Just some small matters. Ian don't disturb your master's rest. Go to Sister Qing Ning's place today, said Qing Ning. Okay. Ian nodded. Not long after, Qing Ning left with Ian Ning Chen stood alone in front of Wenxian Palace. Various thoughts flashed through his mind. Devil, you shouldn't have accepted her as your disciple. The voices of the 49 men and women rang out. What I want to do is none of your business, said Ning Chen coldly. The more things you care about, the more impossible it is for you to pass the devil tribulation. That's self-destruction, said the very high heavens calmly. Isn't that what you want to see, mocked Ning Chen? You haven't brought disaster to the world. Instead, you've contributed greatly to the world. The very high heavens aren't people who can't differentiate between right and wrong, said the 49 in unison. I don't care what you think. Once this matter is over, I'll fulfill my promise and find suitable bodies for you. After that, we don't owe each other anything, said Ning Chen indifferently. The very high heavens was silent. After a moment, they sighed and said, Devil, let me give you a word of advice. No matter what the reason is, your identity can't be exposed. You must not test the hearts of others, because the hearts of others can't withstand any test. Ning Chen didn't reply. He looked at the horizon and silently pondered. The next day, two Supremes appeared at the front lines of the two armies. Leading them were Chao Tianxi, Xiao Bieli, Zhao Yosu, Reverend Li Shan, and the others. They sat facing each other as they discussed the matter of peace. The two sides discussed the details for an entire day. There were many arguments during this time, but they still reached a consensus in the end. Ning Chen stood outside the tent. He didn't participate in the negotiations. Peace hadn't come easily. He had already done what he had to do. Whether or not this peace could be maintained would depend on the sincerity of the heavenly palace and the inner realm. When the sun was about to set, Chao Tianxi and Xiao Bieli walked out of the tent. Their expressions were emotional. No matter what, the war was over. Minister of Heaven, pass down the order to retreat, said Chao Tianxi softly. Yes. Xiao Bieli received the order and walked towards the heavenly palace's army. Chao Tianxi looked at the knowing destiny star not far away. After thinking for a moment, he walked over. Ning Chen looked at the heavenly palace's star sovereign and smiled. You finished talking so quickly? I thought you'd have to talk for several days. As long as the inner realm can peacefully accept my people, anything else is worth it, said Chao Tianxi softly. If the 5 regions had more star sovereigns, I think the heavenly palace would have lost this war long ago, said Ning Chen emotionally. Knowing destiny Marquis, my realm has never lost to the inner realm. We only lost to you, said Chao Tianxi calmly. Ning Chen smiled faintly. It's meaningless to talk about this. Star Sovereign, I hope you can keep my identity a secret. If it's leaked, it won't benefit anyone. Chao Tianxi nodded. I understand. However, I really feel that it's not worth it for you. The Central Plains sects aren't worth your help. The Central Plains was never the one I helped. Star Venerable, I don't mind telling you the truth. If the strength of the Heaven Prefecture was only equal to that of the Central Prefecture, I wouldn't have participated in this war. However, the strength of the Heaven Prefecture is much greater than that of the Central Prefecture. Maybe you don't like to fight, and you just want to find a place for the people of the Heaven Prefecture to settle down. However, what about the other people of the Heaven Prefecture? Will they give up after they successfully take down the central prefecture? You can stop them when they lose, but what about when they win? Can you stop them when they win? After all, humans are not sages, and they are always chasing after more benefits. Chao Tianqi was silent. After a while, he said softly, "Knowing destiny, Marquis, your understanding of people's hearts is really frightening. I've experienced a lot." "It's just an unforgettable lesson," said Ning Chen. He had seen too many things since he had been conferred the title of Marquis. People's hearts were fickle. Betrayal, slander, praise, gratitude, expectation. In this world, the most precious thing was people's hearts, but the most filthy thing was still people's hearts. Star Sovereign, there's one thing I don't understand. Why were your injuries more serious in the battle that day than in competitive Edge City? Ning Chen turned his head and asked confusedly. The fact that they were able to win the battle 10 days ago was somewhat unexpected. Originally, in his estimation, their chances of winning were at most 50%. Half a month ago, the immortal corpses patrolled through Tianheng City and collided with our realm's transmission battle. I had no choice but to stop them. Unfortunately, I still failed, said Chao Tianqi honestly. Ning Chen was shocked. The immortal corpses patrolled. Where did they go? To the east. It should be the eastern divine land, said Chao Tianqi. Hearing this, Ning Chen's eyes lit up. He was also in the eastern divine land at that time. Did he miss it? Knowing destiny, Marquis, I still have something to arrange. I'll leave first. See you later. Seeing the change in Ning Chen's expression, Chao Tianqi didn't ask more and said goodbye. See you later, Ning Chen came to his senses and replied. Chao Tianqi looked at the setting sun in the west and then followed the direction of the army's retreat. Ning Chen looked at the figure of the former gradually disappearing and sighed softly. Finally, it was over. At this moment, Ning Chen's eyes suddenly shrank, and his expression changed dramatically. In the distance, two figures appeared behind Chao Tianqi, who was defenseless. One was purple, and the other was golden. A majestic palm was reflected on Chao Tianqi's back at the same time. Blood sprayed into the air and dyed the sky red, as well as the hope of peace. Chao Tianqi looked back with difficulty. He looked through the two people and saw the knowing destiny Marquis in the distance. At this moment, he was full of mistakes and regret. Chapter 587. The shocking palm caused fog to fill the sky. The hope of peace was always mercilessly trampled on when hope arrived. Chao Tianqi regretted it, and his eyes were filled with hatred. The man with purple light and the Buddha with golden light attacked together when the heavenly mansion star Venerate let down his guard. One palm destroyed Tianqi's life. Heavenly mansion star Venerate, your martial Tao origin belongs to us. As he spoke, the demonic Buddha and purple sky palace sent their true yuan into the former's body to steal his celestial ascension opportunity. In the distance, Xiao Bieli, who was retreating with the army, heard the commotion behind him. He turned around, and his pupils constricted. It was too late to save him. At the critical moment, a red light flashed in front of the two. Taisher appeared in the sky, his sword light surging. With a bang, purple sky palace blocked the sword light. His expression turned cold as he said, Jiming Marquis, are you betraying the inner world by saving the enemy who invaded the 5 regions? Amitabha. Traitors can only die. The demonic Buddha sent out his demonic energy. Golden light flashed as he attacked. You guys are really infuriating. Sword form, bury the heavens. Ning Chen's eyes were filled with endless killing intent. Phoenix fire burned on Taisher's sword. Rays of sword light soared into the sky and turned into a rain of swords. A rain of swords poured down. Expanse after expanse of earth collapsed and caved in. It was as if the heavens and earth had suffered a calamity, and it was filled with desolation. The two blocked the swords. Purple energy and golden light flashed. Tens of thousands of swords couldn't get close to them. The two peak supremes, who were infinitely close to celestial ascension, displayed shocking strength. The battle between the peak supremes was earth-shattering. In the distance, outside the negotiation tent, the supremes of the alliance walked out. Seeing this unexpected scene, they tacitly agreed not to help. The death of the heavenly mansion star venerate was the result they wanted to see the most. As for the Jiming Marquis, the scheming and strength he displayed in this battle was truly terrifying. Everyone, who do you think this arrow should be aimed at? Zhao Liusu walked forward. She waved her hand and a moon appeared. She drew her bow. When the Supremes heard this, they looked at each other. No one said a word. Far away, in the battle, Knowing Destiny faced two peak Supremes alone. After several moves, he was injured for the first time. His blood dyed the Taisher sword red. The sword trembled and wailed. The phoenix spirit was rapidly consumed, and the devil chi was becoming increasingly difficult to suppress. Deep in Knowing Destiny's eyes, a black aura lingered, and the signs of demonization loomed. Demon, you cannot continue fighting. Otherwise, you will no longer be able to conceal your identity, said the 49 men and women. Ning Chen glanced at the star venerables of the alliance in the distance, who were watching with folded arms. The murderous intent in his eyes surged. He dashed out, took the severely injured heavenly mansion star venerate, and quickly retreated. You can't leave. The demonic Buddha opened and closed his hands. Dazzling golden light spread out, forcibly sealing the space within a radius of 10 miles. Zi Tiangong stepped forward and said coldly, Jiming Marquis, put down the star venerate and I'll leave you a whole corpse. With just you guys? What a joke. With no way out, Ning Chen made up his mind. Gathering the last of his strength, he took a step forward and leaped into the air. The Nirvana technique reappeared in the world. Magnificent sword light gathered between heaven and earth. Before the sword was even used, the void around him shattered. Endless swords cut through the sky. The two did not dare to be careless. They gathered their chi and prepared to block the attack. However, the direction of the converging swords suddenly changed and broke through the sealed space. With a bang, the world of golden light shattered. Ning Chen's figure flashed and quickly dashed out. You want to leave? Wishful thinking. Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha's expression darkened. They immediately followed at an extremely fast speed, not any slower than Feng Yuanwu's Knowing Destiny. The two sides were getting closer and closer. Just as they were about to surround each other again, heaven and earth suddenly shook in the distance. Sword Chi. Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha's eyes trembled. They looked toward the southeast with shock. But at this moment, in the distant Tianheng city, beams of sword light shot up into the sky, flowing with brilliant colors and majestic momentum. Above Zhongzhou, tens of thousands of swords bowed together. The sword on sword that transcended the boundaries of the human world reappeared in the world. This is the 11th sword. Ning Chen looked at the rising sword light in the distance. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. The sword venerable was actually not dead. The 11th sword that reappeared was unparalleled. It shot up into the sky from Tianheng city. After a while, the sword changed direction and flew toward the battlefield thousands of miles away. The sword that transcended the boundaries of the human world was limitless and limitless. It reached the battlefield in an instant. Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha's expression changed drastically. They gathered their vital energy and blocked the approaching sword light. Rumbling sounds could be heard as sword radiance shot out in a continuous stream, spanning tens of thousands of li and shaking the world. Ah! Two muffled groans. Blood splattered. The sword light penetrated their bodies. The two peak supremes were instantly injured. Marquis Jiming, please send the star venerable to Tianheng city. Thank you. Minister of Heaven, you lead the army to cover the retreat, a calm voice said from afar. Xiao Bieli nodded and stepped forward. He suppressed the murderous intent in his heart and said seriously, Marquis Jiming, you are faster than us. Please take care of the Star Venerable. Okay. Ning Chen nodded. He took a last look at the Supremes in front of the tent and turned to leave. Peace was his delusion. In front of the tent, the Supremes saw Jiming's last look and felt their hearts tremble. This look was so familiar. It was almost the same as when the latter was forced into the demonic Will Ocean. Let's go. In front of the Heavenly Province's army, Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha didn't dare to stay any longer. They quickly left. The atmosphere of peace between the two armies was swept away. An indescribable pressure spread. It was so heavy that it made it hard for people to breathe. Minister of Heaven, those two weren't from the Five Territory Alliance. We deeply regret what happened just now. Please don't destroy the hard-won peace between the two territories, Li Shan Venerable said with a smile. Xiao Bieli looked coldly at the Supremes in front of him. He didn't say anything and turned to leave. Set up camp and prepare for battle. Yes. The army followed the orders and set up camp. They didn't take a step back. In front of the tent, Zhao Liusu put away her bow and looked at Jiming. Her eyes flashed. She didn't say anything and turned to enter the tent. Peace was her delusion. In a small courtyard in Eternal Heaven City, the black-robed Mu Changa stood up from his wheelchair. His expression was calm and his aura was restrained. No sword intent could be sensed from him. The Heavenly Province's Sword Sovereign had experienced the cycle of life and death and finally stepped into the immortal realm. After an unknown amount of time, red light gathered in the courtyard. Hong Yi walked out and put down the unconscious Chao Tianqi. Mu Changa didn't say anything. He took a step forward and condensed his yuan. Strands of sword qi condensed into the treading celestial's origin and entered Chao Tianqi's chest. In the next moment, blood flowed out of Chao Tianqi's chest and the wound gradually healed. It was a shocking scene. Jiming Marquis, thank you. After a long time, Mu Changa withdrew his hand. No need. This time, the inner realm went back on their word. I only did what I should, said Ning Chen. The Star Sovereign's body and soul were both heavily injured. He won't be able to wake up in a short period of time. Jiming Marquis, although I was unconscious these days, I heard everything the Star Sovereign said clearly. I just want to ask, is this kind of peace really what you want, said Mu Changa calmly. Even the Sword Sovereign can't guarantee that after conquering the central continent, he can suppress the ambitions of the Heavenly Province's Sword Sovereigns to spread the flames of war, right? Ning Chen sighed. This is human nature and is unavoidable. At least, I can guarantee that after the war ends, the people of the inner realm won't be disturbed and won't go back on their word. Speaking of this, Mu Changa looked at the young man in front of him and said seriously, Jiming Marquis, like the Star Sovereign, I didn't mean to bring the flames of war to the inner realm. However, the people of the Heavenly Province need a place to live. We have no other choice. Our realm has tried to accept the peace talks you proposed, but we have given up again and again. However, the inner realm's aggressiveness has left us with no room to retreat. Ning Chen was silent. After a long time, he said, Sword Sovereign, please give me some time. Okay. Mu Changa nodded and said, Jiming Marquis, our realm owes you, so we will do our best to satisfy your request. However, if the inner realm continues to act like this, then this war won't stop even if we have to bear heavenly punishment for breaking our oath. 10 days. Within 10 days, I will give the Heavenly Province a satisfactory answer, Ning Chen promised. If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask, said Mu Changa. No need. This is a matter of the inner realm. It should be resolved by the people of the inner realm. After saying this, Ning Chen didn't say anything else. He turned around and headed north. Mu Changda looked at his back as he left. There wasn't the slightest ripple in his calm eyes. Jiming Marquis, you have done so much for the 5 regions. If your identity as a demon is exposed in the future, how will the 5 regions treat you? Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, in the Golden Buddha ancient temple, a woman in a blue and white dress stood quietly. She was still patiently waiting for an opportunity. Demons were simple but extremely persistent. Halfway through the night, Ning Chen appeared in front of the Golden Buddha temple in red. Why are you here? Bai Yunlian was slightly surprised. I'm here to ask Miss Bai for a favor, said Ning Chen seriously. What is it? Asked Bai Yunlian. Stop the West Earth Divine Palace's Purple Heavenly Palace, said Ning Chen seriously. Bai Yunlian frowned and said, Why are you looking for me? You are now the military advisor of the 5 Territory Alliance. There are many human sovereigns who are stronger than me. Right now, the only one I can trust is you, said Ning Chen calmly. Bai Yunlian's eyes flashed. After a while, he nodded and said, Let's go. Thank you. Ning Chen replied and immediately set off towards the west. In the West Earth Divine Palace, 2 figures, one red and one blue, sped past. Not long after, they disappeared. An hour later, when it was time to part, Bai Yunlian looked at the young man beside him and said seriously, Make use of the time. Purple Heavenly Palace's cultivation has reached the peak of the Absolute Realm. I can't delay it for too long. Understood. Please be careful, Miss Bai. After dealing with the demonic Buddha, I will immediately go and help. After speaking, Ning Chen stepped forward and continued heading west. The demonic valley was a mysterious place surrounded by mountains. In the middle of the mountains, a huge demonic temple stood tall. The sound of a bell echoed throughout the entire valley. At this moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky above the valley. Black fog billowed and covered the sky. In the valley, the disciples of the demonic temple trembled. They looked at the sky and were shocked. Demonic Qi. In the next moment, a black-clothed and black-haired figure slowly descended from the rolling demonic clouds. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He held Qi Lian in his hand. Chapter 588. In Yaoxiang Valley, the demon phoenix descended from the sky. Its demonic aura was surging like an ocean, so terrifying that it made one's heart tremble. Demonic technique, bury the heavens. The demon phoenix moved her sword, and a black phoenix appeared behind her. Countless sword auras rushed into the sky and into the dark clouds. At this moment, thousands of swords fell like rain, drowning the entire Yaoxiang Valley. The sky rumbled and the earth shook. As the sword rain fell, the valley seemed to have met with a heavenly tribulation, cracking and sinking more than 100 feet. The demonic body was emotionless, and so was the sword. Wherever the sword rain fell, blood and bones flew and scattered all over the sky. The area of the falling swords quickly expanded. Around the Yao Temple, golden runes appeared and blocked the rain-like sword auras. However, the sword intent could not be stopped. After a moment, the sword light penetrated the restriction and fell into the Yao Temple. Presumptuous. A furious roar came from the demon temple. In the next moment, a golden light shot up into the sky. A demonic Buddha in a golden kasaya rushed out and struck out with his palm, threatening to kill. With a bang, the palm and sword clashed, and the aftermath spread out. The mountains moved, and dust filled the sky. It's you. The familiar yet strange figure in front of him shocked the demon Buddha. The Xia Jiming Marquis was actually a demon. Jiming Marquis, openly challenging the Yao Temple, aren't you afraid of your identity being exposed? The demon Buddha said coldly. Dead people will not reveal secrets. Jiming is here to send you to the west to face Buddha. As he spoke, Ning Chen's Qi Lian shone brightly, and with a slash, the sword light roared out. Presumptuous. The demon Buddha was furious, and his staff stopped in the air. Golden light rose, and a curse echoed throughout the valley, blocking the sword intent. With a loud bang, the sword light collapsed, and the curse spread out, filling the valley. With the demon sound, the demonic aura in Ning Chen's body shook, showing signs of instability. Demonic technique, bloody path. Ning Chen's eyes turned cold, and the demon phoenix behind him flapped its wings. The black robe flashed by, and a bloody sword dyed the sky red. The staff flew across the sky and blocked the sword, but at this moment, the demonic aura came out of the sword, and with a slash, it tore the golden robe and dyed red. After exchanging a few moves, the demon Buddha was the first to be injured. Shumi Dharma, Tathagata's holy light. The demonic Buddha's expression did not change. He rotated his staff, and golden light flourished as he forcefully counterattacked. Holy light. Ning Chen's crimson chain flashed across his hand. Baleful aura filled the air as he met the Buddha's attack head-on. The holy light and the evil spirit collided, and the evil spirit dispersed. The demonic body retreated several steps, and the demonic Buddha, whose realm was higher, seized the upper hand again. Do I need to wait for you to stop the bleeding for such a small injury? The demonic Buddha mocked coldly. Your sharp tongue won't stop you from being defeated. Ning Chen swung his sword. Demonic chi surged out from his body, encircling the tip of his sword. Boundless waves of demonic chi shook the heavens and the earth. It was so forceful that it shocked everyone. Demons don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The demonic Buddha sneered and clasped his hands together. His magic staff vibrated and rings of golden brilliance spread out. The holy technique of the Buddhist cultivators had reappeared in the mortal world. Sumaru Dharma, Six Sins Extermination. As Shaoqin shouted, the Buddhist sect's sin extermination move appeared in the sky. Under the suppression of the Buddhist energy, the demonic clouds in the sky showed signs of scattering. Demonic technique, blood flame. The demonic body revealed the Buddhist aura. Ning Chen clasped his fingers together and condensed his energy. The wind and clouds on his sword changed. In the midst of the demonic chi, flames rose and spread rapidly. Suddenly, the blood-colored flames formed a shocking momentum that could burn the heavens, suppressing the Buddhist's technique. As the Buddha and the demonic body collided, the heavens and the earth shook. The Buddhist energy and the demonic chi continued to devour each other. Since ancient times, the two forces were incompatible. At this moment, it was hard to tell who was stronger. After the intense tremor, Ning Chen took 2 steps back. The corner of his mouth was red. On the other side, the demonic Buddha also took a step back. The blood chi in his body surged violently. Although the injuries were exchanged, they were not equal. Ning Chen's figure moved again. An afterimage flashed past, and he slashed with his sword. The demonic sword cut through the air. The magic staff blocked the sword. The golden rings rang and the swords chimed together. The two people who had different temperaments, each of their moves and styles were at the pinnacle. They interweaved a rare martial art style. I have endured for too long. Demonic Buddha, I can't keep your life. Ning Chen clasped his fingers together and pointed his sword. Sword light flashed in all directions. Streaks of sword chi rushed towards the demonic Buddha. The demonic Buddha moved and dodged the sword chi. His palm condensed vast essence, which entered the magic staff. Golden light surged and met the sword chi. The extreme essence collided and the aftermath spread out. Both of them were injured and took a few steps back. After a few steps, the two of them stabilized their bodies and suppressed their injuries. Heavy injuries for light injuries. Jiming Marquis, how long can you last? The demonic Buddha sneered. Treasure your words. Each one of them will become your final words, said Ning Chen coldly. Arrogant. The demonic Buddha snorted coldly and slowly raised his right palm. Endless Buddha vitality gathered, and in an instant, golden mist gathered from all directions. Above the 9 heavens, the wind and clouds changed, and lightning fell one after another to support the Buddha technique. Just as he was about to unleash his ultimate move, the demon cultivator's lips curled up in a cold sneer. In the next moment, the phoenix flapped its wings and the demon cultivator's figure disappeared. His sword flashed through the air, instantly arriving in front of the demon cultivator. The sword entered the demonic Buddha's body. Blood splattered. The essence condensation technique was immediately broken. Ugh! The demonic Buddha snorted and quickly retreated. However, the sword chi followed him like a shadow. He could no longer escape. The demonic phoenix's shadow gradually faded behind the demonic Buddha. The demonic phoenix's shadow gradually faded behind Jiming Marquis. The demonic Buddha saw the clue. While he was shocked, he guarded his vital points and tried his best to drag the battle. The demonic Buddha's shadow flashed and the sword chi went back and forth several times. Blood splattered. The demonic Buddha's shadow was extremely fast. The demonic Buddha was unable to defend himself. The sword chi entered his body. The demonic Buddha took a few steps back. Before he could counterattack, he was attacked again and again. It was difficult for him to summon his genuine chi. Purple Heavenly Palace, come and help. In the endless sword chi, the demonic Buddha who was constantly injured felt a life-threatening crisis again. He roared and asked for help from the master of the divine palace. At this moment, thousands of miles away, in the divine palace that towered into the clouds, a figure in purple suddenly opened his eyes. He stepped out and rushed to the demonic valley. However, as soon as he left the divine palace, the originally clear sky was covered by dark clouds. It was raining heavily. In the rain, a woman in blue stepped out. Water dragons circled around her. They roared and danced, blocking the way ahead. Demon, the purple heavenly palace said slowly. Human, from now on, you can't go anywhere, Bai Yunlian said calmly. You don't know what's good for you. The purple heavenly palace snorted coldly. His figure flashed past. Purple chi was vast and mighty. He slapped out a powerful palm. Waterfall. Bai Yunlian raised his hand. In the pouring rain, 4 dragons rushed down to block the former's attack. There was a loud explosion. Heaven and earth wailed. The water in the sky scattered and turned into rain, returning to the earth again. The moment the 4 dragons scattered, the water between heaven and earth gathered again. 9 dragons appeared and circled into the sky. The dragons opened and closed their mouths. Waterfalls poured down like the Milky Way hanging upside down, blocking all the way forward. Just as the two were fighting, thousands of miles away, in the demonic valley, the battle had reached its climax. The demon phoenix's sword locked the Buddha's body. Blocking one sword strike, he was hit several times. The blood that splattered was the sound of a bell from hell. The knowing destiny devil body that came to kill displayed the true strength of the killing body. With the addition of the phoenix spirit, the sword momentum increased the speed of death. The knowing destiny body was one with 3 forms. The earth spirit of the devil body was the main force, the heaven spirit of the phoenix body was the main force, and the life spirit of the body was the main force. However, since the chaos of the Tianfu kingdom, the killing body was restricted by identity and the demonic tribulation. Instead of force, the killing body replaced force. However, the devil was not good at wisdom. Killing was the nature of the devil. After discarding the traps and calculations, the knowing destiny devil body that returned to its original nature showed a shocking combat power. The demonic Buddha was shocked and shocked. Being restricted by the extreme speed, the moment he attacked, his chi was already insufficient. It was difficult to resist the sword momentum. He lost every move and retreated step by step. The situation was getting more and more critical. At the same time, the dual spirit of the devil body clashed with each other, increasing the consumption. The shadow of the demon phoenix gradually faded and the signs of dispersal became more and more obvious. In the stalemate battle, the Buddha of the demonic realm defended every move to protect his vital parts and exchanged injuries for time. On the other hand, the phoenix of the demonic realm was invincible with a sword in hand. Every move was to kill. The extremely fast sword competed with time. The strongest devil and Buddha of the world were fighting at the peak. The sword was above the wind and clouds, and the Buddha spirit on the palm created terrifying waves. Everywhere they passed, the entire demonic valley collapsed. Just as the demonic Buddha's defeat was irreversible, the killing body with the demonic tribulation suddenly staggered. His body shook violently and showed signs of dispersal. Seeing this, the demonic Buddha's eyes shone brightly. In this short gap, he used all his strength to hit the demonic Buddha's chest. With a bang, Qi Lian blocked the palm. Ning Chen retreated a few feet and a trace of red flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Knowing destiny, Marquis, even the heavens want to kill you. Today, you will lose. With a furious roar, the demonic Buddha raised his origin technique. Boundless Buddha light shone on the world. His strongest move appeared. Sumaru Dharma, devouring Bodhi. Buddha of the demonic realm and Buddha of the demonic realm appeared in the Buddha light. A huge demonic chi appeared in the world and shook the world. As expected, in terms of swordsmanship, I am still not as good as senior. Leaders, help me. There was a clear gap in swordsmanship. It was difficult to surpass the boundary of cultivation. Ning Chen said calmly. Then, he clenched his left hand and Taisha appeared. The two swords crossed. In the endless light, the yin-yang formation was opened. The rolling black and red waves drowned the demonic valley. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation appeared. The yin-yang brilliance lit up the dark sky. Ha! At the same time, the 49 Taoist leaders shouted and worked together. Their powerful soul power merged into the formation to help knowing destiny and increase the power of the yin-yang formation. Demonic technique, heaven's tears. The last move pierced through the sky and earth. Endless sword pressure spread out with the power of yin and yang. The mountains collapsed and changed. The battle at the peak was about to end. The undercurrent stole the light of the world. The ultimate moves of the demonic realm and the demonic realm clashed. The rumbling shook the world. The demonic valley, which used to be full of vitality, turned into a land of death under the collision of the two extremes. Not even a blade of grass grew. After the dust dispersed, a person stood on the peak. His black clothes were dyed red and drops of blood slid down his sword. On the other side, the demonic Buddha knelt down silently. Suddenly, a sword chi exploded from his throat. Blood spurted out like a tide and covered his eyes. The staff was broken, the demonic cultivator's soul was scattered. The unbelievable result and the trap had cost him his life. I am not willing. His last words echoed in the valley. In the next moment, his head flew high and landed on the ground. Chapter 589. The demonic Buddha was defeated and the battle ended. Ning Chen walked forward with his sword and took the demonic Buddha's head. He looked at the demonic temple in the mountains and stepped into it. After a while, the huge temple rumbled. Not long after, the demon rushed out and waved his sword. A sword that spanned hundreds of feet fell from the sky. There was a loud bang and the earth shook. In the demonic temple, the mountains moved and boulders fell like rain. The ancient temple fell. In just a few breaths, the ancient sect that had been passed down for thousands of years was completely history. The demonic temple was destroyed and buried in countless rubble. The demon did not stay any longer. He stepped into the air and headed west. At the same time, outside the divine palace, the battle between the two had reached the most critical moment. The difference in cultivation was gradually revealed. As the moves collided, the residual energy was difficult to dissipate. Blood dripped from the corner of Bai Yunlian's mouth. She was obviously injured. However, the promise to stop the enemy could not be retreated. Bai Yunlian had not been in the world for long, and the humans she came into contact with the most were knowing destiny state. The word promise was engraved in her heart. On the other side, although the Divine Palace Master had the absolute advantage, the longer the battle was delayed, the more uneasy he felt. Seeing that the opponent was not retreating, Zi Tiangong flipped his right hand and a vast amount of purple gas rushed from all directions. He threw out a palm with all his strength. Bai Yunlian received the attack and the water dragons around her dissipated. Her blue robe was dyed red and she flew dozens of feet away. Give up your life. Zi Tiangong took a step forward and his palm was filled with killing intent. He threw a fatal blow at the severely injured white dragon. At this moment, the 9 heavens phoenix cried and flames burned the sky. The fire phoenix descended and a red robe appeared. The Taisher sword appeared and blocked the former's attack. Marquis Jiming. Zi Tiangong's expression changed as he looked at the newcomer. Ning Chen pushed the person in front of him away and looked at the girl behind him. He said, "Miss Bai, your injuries are not light. Leave the rest to me. Be careful." Bai Yunlian replied. Then, she took a step forward and quickly retreated from the battle. After the white dragon left, Ning Chen looked at the Divine Palace Master in front of him and said coldly, "Zi Tiangong, the demonic Buddha has gone to the west. It's your turn now." Zi Tiangong heard this and was shocked. He thought of the demonic Buddha asking for help and his uneasiness rose to the extreme. "Very high heavens, are you satisfied with this body?" Ning Chen asked calmly. "Yes," the 49 men and women said in unison. "If that's the case, please help knowing destiny to fight against the enemy." As he spoke, Ning Chen released part of the control over his body to accommodate the consciousness of the very high heavens. Instantly, the consciousnesses of the 49 Taoist leaders fused into the devil's body and reached a new peak. With their consciousnesses coexisting, the 49 Taoist leaders assisted knowing destiny. Taisher swung his sword, the sword radiance was like a tidal wave as it slashed towards the former. It was a completely different sword momentum. Purple Sky Palace took the blow and retreated several steps with a bang. His face was gloomy. "You are not Jiming Marquis. Who are you?" Zi Tiangong asked coldly. "We are from the very high heavens." The 49 people replied. "The air of a gentleman." A cacophony of voices rang out once more. The sword missed on the Taisher sword roared and tore through the air. Zi Tiangong's expression froze. His palm condensed the raging torrents in all directions. Purple chi was vast and mighty, blocking Ling's sword missed. With a loud shake, the Divine Palace Master was forced back several steps. In a frontal exchange, he was actually at a disadvantage. Man follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, and Tao follows nature. After one move, the Taisher sword in the very high heavens hands spun once more. The Taoist secret technique was activated, and the power of heaven and earth in the surroundings gathered continuously. The sword radiance was like the might of heaven, and a frightening pressure quickly spread out. Purple chi from the east, divine martial Dharma idol. Seeing that the incoming attack was extraordinary, Zi Tiangong also activated his martial arts. With a flip of his palm, a divine martial Dharma idol appeared in the human world. The only god in the human world has always been the Netherworld King. Your god is nothing but an illusion. The very high heaven spoke, and Taisher slashed down. In an instant, the sword radiance fell, drawing a dazzling rainbow across the horizon. One sword destroyed the fake god. Fresh blood splattered, dyeing the horizon red. Zi Tiangong was forced back several steps, and blood flowed out from his left shoulder. Retreat. The situation was unfavorable, and Zi Tiangong was unwilling to continue fighting. He stepped on the ground and quickly retreated. Dao Chang Wuming. A strange light flashed in the very high heaven's eyes. His figure swept out and instantly blocked in front of Zi Tiangong. Taisha condensed his Dao energy and slashed down. With a loud bang, Zi Tiangong was forced back several steps. His face became darker and darker. What a troublesome fellow. Seeing the divine palace behind him from the corner of his eye, Zi Tiangong made up his mind. With a deep roar, he absorbed the energy into his qi. Majestic purple qi gathered from all directions. In an instant, the divine palace trembled. Below, the power of the earth surged and rushed to the sky. Purple qi controls the wind. Amidst the rumbling, a palm condensed from the power of the earth surged and roared. Its might shook the world, and the world cried out. Human Tao is insignificant. The very high heavens pointed at the sword, and the green light on the sword rose rapidly. The Taoism's legendary technique had appeared in the human world. As the two techniques collided, the space collapsed. Heaven and earth within 100 miles shook violently. As the aftershock came, the very high heaven's feet slid back several feet before they stabilized themselves. On the other side, after the aftershock, there was still no one. The divine palace master took the opportunity to escape. What a pity. The 49 men and women spoke with slight regret. Zi Tiangong is slightly stronger than the demonic Buddha. It won't be easy to kill him. Let's find another opportunity. Ning Chen retracted control of his body and said calmly. That's the only way. The 49 men replied. Ning Chen leaped into the divine palace. Not long after, he walked out. His body flashed, and he flew in the direction where the white flood dragon left. Half an hour later, the two of them met up and rushed towards the central region together. When the moon set and the sun rose, Ning Chen returned to Competitive Edge City. He did not hide his whereabouts, and directly walked towards the conference hall. In the conference hall, after hearing that Jinming had returned, the honorables gathered. Their expressions were unnatural. Military advisor. When Ning Chen entered the conference hall, the honorables stood up and greeted him politely. No need to be so courteous. Have a seat. Ning Chen acted as if he did not remember what happened the day before. He walked forward and said. On the main seat, Zhao Liusu looked at the honorables below. The corner of her mouth curved into a cold smile, but she did not say anything. I'm here to tell you two things. First, the Heavenly Sword Sovereign has entered the ascending immortal stage. Second, the demonic Buddha is dead, and the demonic temple is destroyed. Ning Chen said lightly. Hearing this, the honorables were shocked. They had already guessed that the Heavenly Sword Sovereign had entered the ascending immortal stage, but they knew nothing about the demonic Buddha's death. In these 2 days, the Heavenly Sword Sovereign had not stepped out of Tianheng City. Then, there was only one person who did this, the Marquis of Jinming. However, was the Marquis of Jinming's strength really that strong? Ning Chen did not care about what the honorables thought. He continued, now that I've finished, there is one more thing I want to ask you. Do you want peace? Honorable Li Shan's eyes narrowed. He said, military advisor, the peace talks have ended. Is the Heavenly Sword Sovereign going back on his word? The heavens and earth bear witness to the oath of a martial artist. If they want to go back on their word, I think they should be prepared to bear the punishment of the heavens, Honorable Xian Zhen said coldly. Ning Chen smiled faintly and said, I understand. Everyone, can you leave and let me have a few words with the Alliance Master? The honorables agreed and left one after another, leaving the two of them alone. Military advisor, where is the Violet Palace? Zhao Liusu asked. It escaped. Ning Chen replied. What a pity. Zhao Liusu sighed softly. I'm very curious. Who was the target of the arrow 2 days ago? Ning Chen said calmly. Military advisor, what do you think? Zhao Liusu smiled. I don't know either. However, putting aside the unexpected appearance of the 11th sword, based on the situation at that time, the Alliance Master's position really had a decisive effect. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and said. Oh. Please elaborate. Zhao Liusu's eyes flashed with a strange light. It's very simple. The Alliance Master's arrow was aimed at me. In the situation at that time, the knowing destiny state would not be able to escape. If it was aimed at the human demon Buddha or the Violet Palace, I think it would be difficult for them to trap me. Unfortunately, the appearance of the 11th sword made it difficult for me to determine the Alliance Master's position. Ning Chen replied. Military advisor, you are too modest. I think that even without the 11th sword, it would not be easy for the two of them to kill you. Similarly, my arrow could only be used as icing on the cake or adding insult to injury. It could not have played a decisive role, Zhao Liusu said. That's why the Alliance Master did not shoot the arrow. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and said. Perhaps. Military advisor should know that after the peace talks between the two realms, there are many people in the 5 regions who want to take the opportunity to get rid of you. One more or one less does not affect you much. My actions at that time were just following the wishes of the people. Zhao Liusu smiled. Zhao Liusu, you have really grown up. You are no longer the simple-minded little girl. Ning Chen stood up and sighed. You flatter me. Didn't you also say that experience is the best teacher in life? Zhao Liusu replied. When did it start? Ning Chen asked again. When the butterfly in the flower came back for revenge. Zhao Liusu replied. Ning Chen was silent. After a moment, he nodded and walked out of the hall. After the knowing destiny state left, several human sovereigns entered the hall again. Xianzhen sovereign walked forward and asked in confusion, Alliance Master, what is the purpose of the knowing destiny Marquis visit? After what happened the day before, although they had not completely broken off with the knowing destiny Marquis, their cooperation was already in name only. The purpose of the knowing destiny Marquis visit was really puzzling. I have already told you why he came. I think there is nothing you don't understand, Zhao Liusu said faintly. Xianzhen sovereign frowned slightly. Just to talk about the Tianfu sword sovereign and the demonic Buddha, there was still that meaningless question. Zhao Liusu did not say anything more. Different people had different thoughts. To the knowing destiny state, this important question was just a meaningless question in the eyes of the other sovereigns. People who walked different paths could not work together. From today onwards, the rise and fall of the Central Plains and the other 3 regions had nothing to do with the knowing destiny state. In Wenxian Palace, Ning Chen walked over. Looking at the little girl who was sitting in front of the hall and waiting in boredom, he showed a gentle smile and said, "In-er." In-er looked up and saw who it was. She jumped up and pouted, "Why are you only back now? I have been waiting for a day." "Sorry, I was delayed by some things." "Let's go," Ning Chen said apologetically. "Okay." In-er quickly ran forward and grabbed his sleeve and left with him. "Did you have a falling out with those people?" In-er asked on the way. "Yes, let me teach you something. Idiocy is contagious. In the future, stay away from them," Ning Chen said softly. "Okay," In-er replied obediently. Chapter 590. In the northwest of the Central Plains, within the Sword Master's study, Ji Ming had been inside for over an hour and hadn't come out. Just as In-er was getting impatient, the door opened and Ning Chen walked out. "Let's go." Grandpa Sword Master agreed? Asked In-er as she walked. "Yes." Ning Chen nodded. "What else did Grandpa Sword Master say?" Asked In-er. "He told you to be obedient." If you don't obey, I can beat you or scold you, smiled Ning Chen. You're lying. Grandpa's sword master would never say something like that. Yin pouted in disbelief. Ha! Ning Chen chuckled. Have you said goodbye to your mother? Yes. Yin responded, her expression unconsciously becoming somewhat downcast. Ning Chen rubbed her hair. Study hard. You'll be back soon. Yes. Yin nodded her head vigorously and replied. The two of them left the sword master's manor. Behind them, a beautiful woman walked out. Her eyes were filled with tears as she watched her daughter leave. Although she was reluctant, she forced herself to not say anything. In the distance, Ning Chen didn't look back, but he could still feel the gaze behind him. He couldn't help but sigh. Within the study, the sword master looked into the distance. He was old and needed someone to inherit the position of sword master. Yin who had undergone the phoenix blood, was undoubtedly the best candidate. But before that, Yin needed someone to lead her. For the sword master and the sword master to be willing to accept this was a blessing for Yin and the sword master's manor. In terms of accomplishments in the sword, there were very few people in the world who could surpass the sword master. The most commendable thing was that the sword master was more open-minded than anyone he had ever seen. He wasn't the slightest bit stingy when it came to passing down martial arts. In the Central Plains, where sects were strict, this was unimaginable. In this world, there are quite a few top techniques, but the number of true experts can be counted on one's fingers. Compared to external factors, internal factors are the key to a person's martial arts attainment. So there's no need to be so rigid about sections. Jiming's words were still echoing in his ears. Swordsmith Manor sighed. He knew that Jiming Marquis had given Yin a heavenly book. This was a great kindness. It meant that Swordsmith Manor would have heavenly book martial arts from now on. It was not until today that he understood why the Marquis of Jiming, who had ordinary talent, had such amazing martial arts achievements. It was not because of the tomes of arcane, nor was it because of the legend of the Xia dynasty, but because of his temperament. Knowing how to repay kindness, treating people with sincerity, doing everything with all one's strength. Knowing Destiny Marquis may have regrets in his life, but he has a clear conscience. Casting Sword pushed the wheelchair out of the study and looked out of the villa. Light flashed in his eyes. If possible, he really wanted to see what kind of person Empress Zhangsun, who was said to have brought up Marquis Jiming, was. On the road to the east, Yin tugged at the sleeve of the person beside her and asked curiously, Ning Chen, where are we going? Eastern Divine Prefecture, Ning Chen replied softly. Oh. Yin responded and asked, why are you going to the eastern region? To confirm some things, Ning Chen replied. When are you coming back? Yin continued to ask. Soon, Ning Chen replied. The time he had agreed to with the sword venerate was only 10 days. 3 days had already passed, and there were only 7 days left. He had to hurry up. When are you going to teach me how to cultivate? Yin asked again. Haven't I already taught you? Ning Chen said. It's too difficult. I don't understand, Yin pouted. Just cultivate. We'll talk about it when there's a problem, Ning Chen said casually. How can there be a master like you? Yin was extremely dissatisfied. You've seen it now. You have to rely on yourself to learn martial arts. If it's too easy, it won't be good, Ning Chen replied. You're just finding excuses for your irresponsibility, Yin complained angrily. The two of them traveled east. With Yin Ning Chen slowed down a lot. When they arrived at the Eastern Divine Prefecture, it was already noon of the second day. 100 miles to the west of the former Eternal Night Sect's ruins, there was a towering tower. The 5 regions had merged for more than 20 years, and the tower had long been abandoned and damaged. Ning Chen pulled the little girl into the pagoda and carefully looked at the structure of the pagoda. Back when the divine prefecture had been pulled into the Four Regions realm, the calamity of the Nether King had just subsided. The divine prefecture's vitality had been greatly damaged, and he had been heavily injured and unconscious. He had already obtained the construction method of the Four Directions Divine Tower from the Demon Temple and Divine Palace. However, in order to determine its authenticity, he had to personally verify it. At sunset, Ning Chen left the pagoda and headed south with Yin Er. Just as Ning Chen returned to the Eastern Divine Prefecture, the situation between the Central Divine Prefecture, Heavenly Mansion, and the Alliance was becoming more and more tense. Chao Tianxi had been ambushed by an inner realm sovereign on the day of the peace talks, and he had been heavily injured. Such a despicable act had completely angered the Heavenly Mansion's army. In just a few days, it was becoming harder and harder to suppress the calls for war. It was only a matter of time before war broke out. Within Eternal Heaven City, Mu Chang'e stood in front of the city, his black robes fluttering in the wind. Within an earth flame divine furnace, the heavenly tower was being reforged. The Holy Land's last bit of star soul essence had been fused into the sword, increasing its strength. Sword venerate. An azure-robed elder respectfully bowed. Old One, when will the heavenly tower be completed? Mu Chang'e asked. 7 more days, the azure-robed elder replied. Mu Chang'e nodded. Now, whether they would fight or make peace, they would have to wait for the Jiming Marquis reply. In the northern part of the Central Divine Prefecture, in Jingfeng City, all the sovereigns had gathered. The seriousness on their faces was difficult to conceal. Zhao Liusu sat in the main seat and looked at the sovereigns below with a mocking smile. One miscalculation had led to a bitter taste of his own medicine. No one could have predicted that the Heavenly Mansion's sword venerate would awaken. The sovereigns thought that after killing Chao Tianxi, the Heavenly Mansion's army wouldn't dare to fight due to the punishment of breaking their oath. They didn't think that they would end up in the most dangerous situation. The Heavenly Mansion's sword venerate had stepped onto the path of celestial ascension and the military advisor had left. The inner realm situation was precarious. The Heavenly Mansion's sovereigns should still be worried about the punishment of breaking their oath. It's impossible that they haven't made a move yet, said Sovereign Xian Zhen. Hearing this, the sovereigns felt less uneasy. No one wanted to face a swordsman who had stepped on the immortal path. On the main seat, Zhao Liusu smiled faintly and ruthlessly destroyed the sovereign's excuses. Although the punishment of the heavens is terrifying, it's not impossible for a sovereign to withstand it. I think the real reason why the Heavenly Mansion has been waiting until now isn't the punishment of the heavens, but the military advisor. Why? Sovereign Li Shan didn't understand and asked. The day before yesterday, the military advisor came and asked if you all wanted peace. Unfortunately, no one answered directly, Zhao Liusu said faintly. The sovereigns frowned. What did she mean? Zhao Liusu didn't explain further. She closed her eyes and pondered quietly. In the eastern region, south of the barbarian dynasty, Ning Chen walked out of the second tower and headed east with Yin Er. How many towers like this are there? Yin Er asked. 4, Ning Chen replied. What's the use of it? Yin Er didn't understand. Back then, the masters of the Divine Palace and the Demon Temple used the 4 towers and the power of the Divine Prefecture's ley lines to pull the eastern region back to the 4 regions, Ning Chen replied. Oh. Yin nodded and said honestly, I still don't understand. Do you know why Heaven's Sanctum and the Inner Realm are at war? Ning Chen asked softly. I don't know. Yin Er shook her head. To survive. Ning Chen sighed. I've been to Heaven's Sanctum planet before. It's a very beautiful land, but it's about to be destroyed. When Yin Er heard this, she couldn't bear it and said, since those sovereigns can come to the inner realm, they can also bring the people of Heaven's Sanctum. Why must they invade us? You're still young and haven't experienced much. Human nature is much more complicated than you think. Ning Chen rubbed the little girl's hair and said, the resources of a single star are limited. Even if it's enough to accommodate a few more heaven's sanctum, the various sects won't be willing to let others touch what's theirs. In order to survive, heaven's sanctum only has two choices, to join the inner realm or to launch an invasion. At this point, Ning Chen's eyes flashed, and he said, joining the inner realm means that your fate is in the hands of others. In layman's terms, it's selling yourself as a slave. The fate of the people of heaven's sanctum can be imagined. Therefore, heaven's sanctum only has one choice, and that is to invade. Then who's right and who's wrong? Was a little confused. There's no right or wrong, only a standpoint. Chao Tianxi didn't hesitate to sacrifice himself for the people of heaven's sanctum. In the hearts of the people of heaven's sanctum, he's a true hero. However, for the inner realm, the heaven's sanctum star venerables are enemies. Standing in different positions, one's judgment of right and wrong is different. However, no matter what the goal is, war itself is definitely wrong, because the people who truly bear the flames of war are never the decision-makers of war, but the people of the world. Ning Chen said word by word. Rise, the people suffer. Fall, the people suffer. This was an eternal truth, but it was also the most nonsense that no one paid attention to. 20 years ago, Fan Lingyue led his troops down south. He wanted to conquer the Great Xia and then unify the entire divine prefecture, establishing a prosperous era without war. However, the premise of all this was to reshuffle the forces of the divine prefecture, and the sacrifices involved were more than millions. He didn't know when the prosperous era of the divine prefecture would arrive, but he knew very well that what really decided all of this was not military force, but the hearts of the people. In the current situation, whether it was the divine prefecture or the other 4 regions, it was impossible to achieve. It could be said that the purpose of the underworld king's creation had failed. There were too few people like Chao Tianxi. It was the same in the inner realm and heaven's sanctum. Perhaps one day, the hearts of the people would no longer be like they were now. The world would return to peace, the people would be rich, and the prosperous era of the divine prefecture would truly arrive. Then, Fan Lingyue would be able to rest in peace. In the east of Barren City, Ning Chen walked over and stepped into the divine pagoda. In Barren City, Jian Luiying, who had been guarding the city, felt a familiar sword pressure in the distance. His figure flashed, and he quickly rushed in the direction of the divine pagoda. Inside the divine pagoda, there was a familiar red robe and a familiar aura. Jian Luiying's body trembled, and he said in surprise, Marquis Jiming. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the person in front of him. A smile appeared on his face, and he said, Jian San, long time no see. Chapter 591. When old friends met, things remained the same but people had changed. They had once faced each other in life and death, yet when they met again now, there was only emotion left. The enmity of the past had long since vanished along with the passage of time, and it no longer had any meaning. 20 years had passed and Jian Luiying, whose temperament had changed, had also stepped onto the path of Xiantian. Although he was still a distance away from Sword 2 and the former Sword 1, he had already surpassed himself by too much. Why are you here? Jian Luiying didn't understand. I've confirmed some things. The answers I want are in the 4 divine pagodas of the divine prefecture, Ning Chen replied. Jian Luiying nodded and didn't probe further. He changed the topic and said, 10 years ago, junior sister went to the other 4 regions to look for you. Did you meet? When Ning Chen heard this, his eyes narrowed as he slowly said, no. After leaving for so many years, he had never heard any news about Mu Qingxue. He had always thought that she had stayed in the divine land. Jian Luiying sighed softly. It seemed that they had missed it again. Ji Ming Marquis, cherish the people in front of you. You have already missed out on too much. If you don't cherish them, you will really be strangers, Jian Luiying advised seriously. Thank you for your reminder. I'll keep it in mind, Ning Chen said calmly. Looking at the former's expression, Jian Luiying was deeply moved. After going through so many things, had the two of them really drifted further and further apart? Ning Chen thought for a moment and said, Sword 3, if Sword 2 returns, can you help me tell him something? Oh. What is it? Jian Luiying asked in surprise. If I don't show up for the arranged battle between us within 3 months, it means that I'm unable to come. Tell him not to wait any longer, instructed Ning Chen. Jian Luiying frowned and nodded, agreeing to the former's request. When the moon was high in the sky, Jian Luiying left the God Pagoda and returned to Barren City. The reunion of old friends after 20 years was simple and plain. Not long after, Ning Chen also came out of the Divine Pagoda and headed north with Yin He. Ning Chen, I'm tired, Yin He said listlessly. On my back? Ning Chen asked. Okay. Yin nodded. Ning Chen crouched down and carried the little girl on his back. They continued on their way. Yin laid on the former's back and hugged him tightly. Soon, she fell asleep peacefully. Ning Chen sighed. Over the past few days, the one who had suffered the most was this girl. She was always running around with him and had never had a good rest. Under the night sky, the northbound red coat disappeared in a flash. It was so fast that it was hard to see it clearly. In the northern Meng royal court, east of the royal palace, upstream of the cold river, Ning Chen appeared in front of the last square tower and walked in. 20 years had passed in the frigid ice divine tower, but not a single blade of grass grew around it. The construction of the 4 cardinal divine tower had forcefully absorbed the origin of heaven and earth, causing an unimaginable disaster to the divine great land. Ning Chen stood inside the tower, looking at the structure of the divine tower. He reached out and touched it. Traces of cold air could be clearly felt. Even after 20 years, it still hadn't completely dissipated. Right at this moment, a small, fair hand reached out and touched the body of the tower. Seeing this, Ning Chen reached out and slapped the little girl's hand away. He reprimanded her softly, "Don't be naughty. This cold air might be dangerous." Oh. Yin retracted her hand and laid on the former's back. She curiously sized up the divine pagoda. This pagoda was the most complete of the 4 towers. It looked truly spectacular. The little girl didn't say anything, so Ning Chen just let her be. He carefully examined each rune and then verified it in his heart. These tadpole runes all look the same. Is there a difference? Yin felt dizzy. Yes. Ning Chen nodded. Why can't I see it? Asked Yin. That's because you're stupid, said Ning Chen casually. You're the stupid one, said Yin unhappily. Look carefully. In truth, each rune has a slight difference. They're not completely the same, reminded Ning Chen softly. Yin raised her head and looked at the runes on the pagoda. After carefully comparing them, she finally found a slight difference. It's so complicated. Can you remember it? Asked Yin as she rubbed her sore eyes. It's all right, said Ning Chen. Amazing. Yin's eyes were filled with envy. I'll teach you in the future, said Ning Chen softly. Okay, Yin replied obediently. When the sun rose and the moon set, Ning Chen finished looking at all the runes on the pagoda and directly left. In the distance, the capital of northern Meng could be vaguely seen. The city of miracles in the desert was so beautiful under the morning sun. Ning Chen only took a glance before leaving. He didn't stay for even a moment. In Tianheng City in Central Prefecture, the earthly fire divine furnace was listening to the rise and fall of the heavenly tower. The day of its completion was getting closer and closer. Not far away, Mu Chang'e stood quietly and looked towards the north. Jiming Marquis, time is running out. What's your answer? In the homeland of Western Buddha, Ning Chen, who had rushed back, once again returned to the heaven's equal peak where the demonic Buddha and the purple heavenly palace had pulled the divine prefecture back. He looked at the strange peak that had sunk for several days. Demon, you still can't figure it out? Asked the 49 people in unison. Ning Chen nodded. Even with the help of the Four Directions Divine Pagoda, pulling the divine prefecture back to the eastern region from across a realm was an incredible feat. He couldn't understand how the demonic Buddha and the purple heavenly palace had done it. You've done well enough. However, there's a limit to human power. You can't predict everything, said the very high heavens calmly. Ning Chen was silent. After a long time, he sighed, if the phoenix body was here, perhaps I would know the answer. In terms of comprehension, I'm not as good as him. Perhaps, there's another way, said the very high heavens. There's no time. Ning Chen's eyes flashed. Not only was there no time in the inner realm, but there was also no time in the divine prefecture. He didn't know how long it would take to think of another way. Using only 2 peak supremes to move a region is indeed incredible. Now, we can only try as soon as possible. Perhaps we can find the key, suggested the very high heavens. That's the only way. Ning Chen nodded. His feet moved and he rushed towards the east. In Tianheng City, the earthly fire divine furnace was at its final stage. Mu Chang'e stood in front of the earthly fire divine furnace. His restrained sword intent was constantly vibrating. It was obvious that he couldn't suppress it anymore. The heavenly tower hummed softly. The peerless divine weapon was reborn. The sword hummed as if it was asking its master to fight. Wait a little longer. Mu Chang'e calmly said. The Jiming Marquis hadn't arrived yet. However, he believed that the Jiming Marquis wouldn't miss the appointment. At the last moment, 100 feet away from the earthly fire divine furnace, the Jiming Marquis. Mu Chang'e turned around and looked at the young man in front of him. He said calmly, Jiming Marquis, the answer. The demonic Buddha is dead. Also, Ning Chen threw the demonic Buddha's head to the side and said seriously, there might be a way to protect the Tianfu star. Mu Chang'e's eyes narrowed. He said slowly, please speak. Ning Chen explained the method in detail. He then continued, now, the most important thing is to try to use the Four Corners Divine Tower as soon as possible. Also, we need to find traces of the Purple Sky Palace and get him to tell us the key to the Four Corners Divine Tower. Mu Chang'e was silent. After a while, he nodded. Thank you. I will arrange these 2 things. But before that, there is one more thing that must be done. Mu Chang'e turned around and walked to the earthly fire divine furnace. He held his sword and slowly pulled it out. In an instant, the heavens and the earth froze. Boundless sword pressure spread out rapidly. Jiming Marquis, I promise that I won't hurt the people of the inner world anymore. However, the sovereigns of the various sects have gone too far. I can't take it anymore. Mu Chang'e jumped up. The heavenly imperial palace rotated. Sword chi filled the sky and shot into the sky. It was boundless and majestic. The world trembled. Sword. 11. With the sound of the 11th sword, thousands of crisscrossing sword lights broke through the air like meteors streaking across the 9 heavens. They flew toward the direction of Competitive Edge City. Sword chi fell like rain above the Hall of Venerables in Competitive Peak City. In an instant, the hall collapsed. The Hall of Venerables, which represented the Alliance's prestige, was destroyed. This shocking sword shocked everyone in Zhongzhou. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear. In Tianheng City, Ning Chen sighed. After this sword, the various sects in the inner world should wake up. After that sword, Mu Chang'e landed from the sky and said, Jiming Marquis, let's go. Ning Chen nodded. He held Yin Er's hand and walked toward the teleportation array. Dongshuan, Tiandu, Taishian, Zhenyang, come with us, ordered Muchanga. Yes. The 4 supreme beings walked out and said respectfully. The 7 of them entered the array. Light constantly flashed, and in the blink of an eye, the 7 of them disappeared. On planet Tianfu, the light of the array flickered. 7 figures appeared and walked out of the array. I need to know the location of that large star, said Ning Chen. Come with me. Muchanga said and walked towards the star Soul Life Sea. Sword Sovereign. A sovereign respectfully bowed in front of his star Soul Life Sea. 6 flowers, what's the situation? Asked Muchanga. The 6 flowers venerate shook his head and sighed. It's a bit faster than expected. In at most 5 years, that star will collide with Tianfu star. Muchanga frowned. Why is there such a difference in time? Isn't there still 8 years? It's hard to avoid errors in calculations. Before, the 2 stars were far away, so it was hard to determine. Now that the distance is closer, the calculation is more accurate, explained the 6 flowers venerate. Muchanga's eyes darkened. Is 5 years accurate? At most that's the case. There's no guarantee. It might be even less, said the 6 flowers venerate honestly. Ning Chen stepped forward and looked at the big stars in his star Soul Life Sea. He narrowed his eyes and said, Sword Venerable, if Tian Xiang used all his strength, how long would it take to set up a teleportation array that could cross 2 stars? If we prepare it in advance, it'll take a month. With the current situation, it'll take at least 3 months, said Muchanga. That's too long. Ning Chen looked at Muchanga. I need at least 3 of these teleportation formations. Adding on the time it takes to build the 4-direction divine tower, there's no time to test it. Each teleportation formation must be set up within a month. Muchanga's expression turned serious. After a long time, he said, All right, I'll find the things you need as soon as possible. You don't need to worry about the formation. I'll do my best. However, I'll leave the matter of the 4-direction divine tower to you. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.